Hi guys, tonight we drift quietly into the story of a long journey home through the snow. The sun is sinking, the air is turning cold. It feels like ice against your cheeks. The wind is coming off the fields like a cold river, finding every gap in your clothes. You can hear the dry grass snapping under your boots. So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe. But only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And if you want to let me know where you are listening from and what time it is where you are. I always love seeing those little snapshots of the world. Now dim the lights and let the story begin. The year is 1845. You are standing in the middle of a very busy city. It is the middle of December, and the air smells of coal smoke and wet stone. All around you, the city is loud. You hear the sound of iron wheels on the cobblestones. The cobblestones are the round, hard stones that make up the street. They are wet today, shining like grey glass under the dim light of the afternoon. People are rushing past you. They are wearing long coats and tall hats. Everyone is in a hurry because Christmas is coming. They want to finish their work and get to their families. You are standing in your small room. It is a quiet place, but today it feels a bit empty. You have lived here for a long time, working in the center of the city, but now it is time to go home. You look at your bed and the small wooden table. There is a candle on the table, and the flame is dancing slowly. It casts long, soft shadows on the walls. The walls are made of old wood and plaster. You can feel the chill of the winter air creeping in through the glass of the window. On the bed, you see your bag. It is a carpet bag. This is a special kind of travel bag made from thick, heavy cloth that looks like a rug. It has leather handles that feel cool and smooth in your hands. It is a strong bag, and it is full of your things. You have packed your best woolen shirt and a thick pair of socks. You have also packed a few small gifts for your family. There is a small wooden toy for your nephew and a tin of sweet biscuits for your mother. You press your hand against the side of the bag. It feels lumpy and full. In the mid-1800s, many people still had to use horse-drawn coaches to travel to towns that did not have a train station yet. This is how you will travel. You know it will be a long trip, but the thought of the warm kitchen at home makes you smile. You reach for your coat. It is made of very thick, dark wool. It is heavy when you lift it up. You slide your arms into the sleeves and feel the weight of it on your shoulders. It is a good coat. It will keep you safe from the biting wind. You wrap a long scarf around your neck. The wool is a bit scratchy, but it is very warm. You take one last look around your room. You want to make sure the fire in the grate is out. The grate is the metal basket that holds the burning coal. There are only a few red embers left now. They glow like small, angry eyes in the dark. You take a small metal tool and poke at them until they turn to grey ash. The room gets a little bit darker. You pick up your carpet bag and walk to the door. The floorboards creak under your boots. It is a slow, steady sound. Creak, creak. You step out onto the landing and walk down the stairs. The wooden railing is smooth under your hand. You have touched this wood 1,000 times, but today it feels different. Today, you are leaving the city behind. You reach the bottom of the stairs and open the heavy front door. The cold hits you immediately. It is a sharp, fresh feeling that fills your lungs. It is much colder than it was this morning. The sky is a heavy, flat color, like a sheet of lead. There is no blue left in the sky. The sun is hidden behind thick clouds that look full of water and ice. You step out onto the pavement. The pavement is made of flat stones, and they are slippery with a thin layer of frost. You walk carefully, keeping your head down to hide your face from the wind. The city is full of smells. You smell the horses that are pulling the carts. You smell the fried fish from a shop on the corner. You smell the wet wool of the people walking past you. But most of all, you smell the winter. It is a clean, sharp smell that tells you the snow is coming. You can feel it in the back of your throat. You walk toward the big inn where the stagecoach will pick you up. An inn is a big building where people can eat and sleep while they are traveling. This inn is very old. It has big wooden beams and a sign that swings in the wind. The sign makes a rusty, squeaking sound. Squeak, squeak. It sounds like a lonely bird. You see many other people gathered outside. They are all holding bags and boxes. They are all huddling together to stay warm. You see a man selling hot chestnuts on the corner. He has a small stove made of iron. Inside the stove, there are hot coals. The chestnuts are roasting on top of the heat. They make a little popping sound as they get hot. The smell is sweet and earthy. You reach into your pocket and find a few copper coins. You buy a small paper bag of the chestnuts. They are so hot that you have to move them from hand to hand so you do not burn your skin. You tuck the bag inside your coat, right against your chest. The warmth feels wonderful. It spreads through your clothes and makes you feel a little bit more ready for the long night ahead. You stand there for a moment, just breathing. You look up at the tall buildings of the city. They look so solid and strong. You see the yellow light of gas lamps starting to flicker on. The gas lamps are tall metal poles with a glass box on top. Inside, a small flame burns. It gives off a soft, flickering light that does not reach very far into the shadows. The light reflects in the puddles on the ground. You think about the road ahead. It is a long way to your village. You will have to travel through the woods and over the hills. You hope the weather stays clear, but the air feels heavy. The wind is starting to pick up. It whisks a bit of rubbish across the stones. A stray piece of paper dances in the air before falling into the gutter. You feel a sense of peace. For a few minutes, you just stand still. You do not think about your work or the things you have to do. You just listen to the city. You hear the distant ring of a bell. You hear the chatter of the crowd. You hear the steady beat of your own heart. Everything feels like it is waiting for something big to happen. The world is holding its breath. You shift the weight of your carpet bag to your other hand. It is heavy, but you do not mind. Everything you need for the holiday is inside that bag. You feel the warm chestnuts against your ribs. You watch the grey clouds move slowly across the sky. The day is ending, and your journey is about to begin. You are leaving the noise and the crowds. You are heading toward the quiet of the country. You are heading toward home. The courtyard of the inn is a busy place, even though the sun is almost gone. You stand on the damp ground, feeling the straw crunch under your heavy boots. People have laid straw down to cover the mud and the ice. It is yellow and dry, and it makes a soft, rustling sound as you move your feet. You can smell the stables nearby. It is a thick, warm smell of horses, old leather, and dry hay. It is not a bad smell. It feels like the countryside is already calling to you. You look around at the other people waiting for the coach. There is an older woman holding a small bird cage covered with a thick cloth. You wonder if there is a silent bird inside, trying to stay warm. There is a tall man with a very long coat that has many layers over the shoulders. This is called a greatcoat. The extra layers of cloth help the rain and snow slide right off without getting his inner clothes wet. He's leaning against a wooden post, looking at the grey sky. He looks worried. You feel a little bit of that worrying, too. The air is getting much sharper now. It bites at the tip of your nose and makes your ears tingle. You reach into your pocket to find your pocket watch. This is a small, round clock that you keep in your pocket on a silver chain. You pull it out and hold it in your hand. The metal is cold against your palm. You press a small button, and the lid snaps open with a tiny click. You look at the white face of the watch. The black hands show that the coach should be here very soon. In these days, time is kept very carefully because the mail must be moved across the country. A historical fact you might like to know is that stagecoaches were the fastest way to send letters and news before the trains took over. They were very proud of being on time. You close the watch and tuck it back into your coat. The ticking sound is so quiet that you can only hear it if you hold it right to your ear. The wind begins to pick up. It whistles through the gaps in the wooden fence. It makes a low, moaning sound. You pull your scarf tighter around your neck. The chestnuts you bought earlier are starting to cool down, but the paper bag is still warm against your skin. You see a man come out of the inn carrying a large torch. The torch is a long piece of wood with a bundle of cloth at the end that is soaked in oil and set on fire. It gives off a bright, orange light and a lot of thick, black smoke. The man places the torch in a metal ring on the wall. The light dances across the faces of the people waiting. It makes their eyes look bright and their shadows look very long on the straw. You take a moment to just stand still. You look at your breath as you exhale. It comes out in a thick, white cloud, like the steam from a kettle. It hangs in the air for a second before the wind whisks it away. You watch the way the light from the torch catches the tiny bits of dust and frost in the air. Everything is quiet for a heartbeat. The city noise feels far away now. There is only the sound of the wind and the distant clatter of a bucket in the stables. You feel very small under the big, dark sky. It is a moment of deep peace. Even though you are cold, you feel safe in the circle of light from the torch. Then you hear it. It is a faint sound at first, like a drum beating far away. Thump thump, thump thump. It is the sound of horses' hooves hitting the hard road. The sound gets louder and faster. You hear the jingle of metal chains and the creak of heavy wood. From around the corner, a giant shape appears in the gloom. It is the great stagecoach. It is painted a deep, dark red, and it looks like a heavy wooden box on 4 giant wheels. The wheels are as tall as a small child, and they are covered in black mud. The coach is pulled by 4 large horses. They are beautiful animals, with thick coats of brown and black fur. As they pull the heavy coach into the yard, they are breathing hard. Huge clouds of white steam rise from their noses and their bodies. They look like they are made of fire and mist. The driver sits high up on a wooden bench at the front. He's wearing a huge hat and holding a long whip, though he does not use it. He pulls on the leather reins, and the horses slow down. They stomp their feet on the cobblestones, making a loud, ringing noise. Clack, clack. Sparks fly from their iron shoes where they hit the stones. The coachman calls out the name of your town in a loud, gravelly voice. His voice sounds like stones rubbing together. He looks tired, and his face is red from the cold wind. He climbs down from his high seat. He moves slowly, because his legs are stiff from sitting in the cold for so long. He begins to move a heavy wooden ladder, so the passengers can get to the roof or the door. You look at the coach. It is a strong building on wheels. It has small glass windows with wooden frames. You see the luggage being tied to the top with thick ropes. Men are lifting heavy trunks and bags, their muscles straining under their coats. They use a special tool called a hook to help them grip the heavy leather straps. You watch them work, listening to the grunt of the men and the restless stomping of the horses. The horses are shaking their heads, making the metal bits in their mouths jingle like little bells. You feel a surge of excitement in your chest. This is it. This is the start of the journey home. You pick up your carpet bag and move toward the coach. You feel the weight of the bag in your hand, and the ground feels solid under your feet. The air is even colder now, and you see a single white flake of snow fall past the torchlight. It lands on your sleeve and stays there for a second, a tiny star of ice, before it melts away. You know the trip will be hard. You know the snow is coming. But as you look at the warm yellow light coming from inside the coach windows, you feel a little bit of hope. You wait your turn to show your ticket. The ticket is a small piece of thick paper with ink writing on it. You hold it carefully so the wind does not blow it away. The coachman takes it with a gloved hand and nods at you. He does not speak, but his eyes are kind. You turn to look back at the inn one last time. The torch is still burning, but the shadows are growing. The city is fading into the dark. You are ready to leave the world of shops and streets. You are ready for the long, white road. You lift your foot to the first step of the coach. The wood is worn smooth by thousands of other feet. You grip the leather handle by the door. It feels cold and tough. You pull yourself up, feeling the coach tilt slightly under your weight. It feels like a big, wooden cradle. You step inside the small space, and the smell changes. Inside, it smells of old wool, dry straw, and the faint scent of lavender that someone has used to keep the seats fresh. It is much warmer inside than it is out in the yard. You find a spot on the hard bench and sit down. You pull your bag close to your knees and wait for the others to join you. The journey has truly begun. The inside of the coach is a very small world made of wood and leather. As you sit down, you feel the hardwood of the bench through your thick trousers. There is no soft cushion here. Instead, the seat is covered with a thin layer of leather that has been worn smooth by many people over many years. It feels cool at first, but you know your body heat will soon make it warmer. You shift your weight, trying to find a spot that does not poke into your back. The space is tight. Your knees are almost touching the bench across from you. On the floor, there is a thick layer of golden straw. This is not just to keep the floor clean. The straw is there to act like a blanket for your feet. In the 1800s, there was no heater in a coach. There were no pipes to bring in warm air. To keep your toes from turning to ice, the coachman would put deep piles of dry straw on the floorboards. You push your boots deep into the stalks. You can hear them crunch and snap. It is a dry, dusty sound. The straw helps to trap the air and keep the cold from coming up through the floor. It smells like a summer field, even though the world outside is turning grey and cold. A historical fact that is interesting to think about is how people paid for their seats. You are an inside passenger. This means you paid more money to sit inside the wooden box where it is dry. People who had less money had to sit on the roof. They were called outside passengers. They had to hold on to iron rails while the wind blew right against them. You feel lucky to be inside. Even if the seat is hard, you look up at the ceiling of the coach. It is very low. A tall man would have to bend his neck to sit here. The wood is painted a dark color, and there are small pockets made of cloth on the walls. You can put a book or a pair of gloves in these pockets, so they do not get lost in the straw. You watch as the other passengers climb in. A young woman sits across from you. She's wearing a bonnet, which is a big hat that ties under her chin with a silk ribbon. She holds a small bundle close to her chest. She looks tired, and she gives you a small, shy nod. Next to her, a man with a large beard and a thick coat sits down. He brings the smell of cold air and damp with him. The coach feels much smaller now that it is full. You can feel the warmth of the other people. It is a strange feeling to be so close to people you do not know. But on a long journey, you will become a little family for a night. Outside, you hear the sounds of the luggage being finished. You hear a man climb up the ladder to the roof. You can hear his boots thumping on the wood above your head. Thud, thud. It sounds like a giant is walking on your house. He is pulling a heavy rope to tie down the trunks and bags. You hear the rope rubbing against the wood. It makes a long, groaning sound. You think about your carpet bag, tucked safely under your legs. You hope the knots are tight. You do not want your gifts and your clean clothes to fall off into the mud. You look out the small window. The glass is not very clear. It has little bubbles and lines in it because of how it was made. You press your finger against the pane. It is very, very cold. A tiny bit of frost is already starting to grow in the corners of the window. It looks like small, white feathers. You use your glove to wipe away the fog from your breath. The courtyard of the inn is moving away as the horses begin to pull. There is a sudden jerk. The coach moves forward just an inch and then stops. You hear the coachman shout to the horses. His voice is loud and clear in the cold air. Then, with a loud creak of leather and wood, the coach begins to roll. You feel the wheels move over the cobblestones. Rumble clack, rumble clack. The whole coach shakes. Your head bounces slightly against the back of the seat. The movement is not smooth like a modern car. It is a rough, bouncy ride. You feel every stone in the road. As the coach leaves the circle of light from the inn, you enter the darkness of the street. For a moment, it is very quiet inside the coach. No one is talking. Everyone is just feeling the rhythm of the road. You look at the dark shapes of the houses passing by. The yellow light from their windows looks like warm eyes watching you go. You feel a sense of reflection. You are moving away from your daily life. You are moving away from your job and your small room. You are heading into the unknown night. You feel a little bit of fear, but mostly you feel a quiet kind of peace. The world is getting bigger, and you are just a small part of it. You notice a small object near your feet. It is a foot warmer. This is a micro-history detail that was very common back then. It is a small metal box with holes in the top. Inside the box, there is a piece of hot coal or a brick that was heated in a fire. The young woman across from you has her feet resting on it. You see a tiny bit of grey smoke curl up from the holes and then vanish. It does not make the whole coach warm, but it keeps her feet from freezing. You wish you had one, but the deep straw is doing a good job for now. You wiggle your toes and feel the dry grass rubbing against your leather boots. The sound of the city is fading away. The clop-clop of the horses' hooves sounds different now. Instead of the ringing sound of stones, it sounds softer. You have reached the edge of the city, where the roads are made of packed dirt. The coach feels a bit more steady now. The swaying motion is almost like being on a boat in a calm river. It moves you from side to side. Left, then right, left, then right. It is a very sleepy feeling. You lean your head back against the wood. You can hear the wind whistling through the small cracks in the door. It is a high, thin sound, like a tiny flute. But inside, you are tucked away. You are in a little wooden bubble. The smell of the straw is very strong now, mixed with the smell of the leather seats. It is a very old smell. It is the smell of 100 journeys. You close your eyes for just a second. You feel the vibration of the road in your bones. You are not just a person in a coach. You are part of the machine, moving through the cold night. You are safe for now. The horses are strong, and the driver knows the way. You take a deep breath and let your body sink into the hard bench. The journey has truly started, and the city is now just a memory in the dark. The coach rolls further away from the city. The last of the houses are now behind you. The yellow light from the gas lamps is gone, and the world is painted in shades of deep blue and charcoal grey. You look out of the window and see the open fields. They look like big, flat blankets of dark velvet under the heavy sky. There are no more shops, no more people walking on the pavement, and no more noise from the city. There is only the steady beat of the horses' hooves and the creaking of the wooden coach. Inside, the air is getting colder. The warmth from the city is fading away. You pull your thick wool coat closer to your body. You feel the rough texture of the wool against your chin. It is a solid, comforting feeling. The young woman sitting across from you is doing the same. She reaches into a small bag and pulls out a muff. A muff is a tube made of thick, soft fur. You put both of your hands inside it from each end, so they can stay warm together. She slides her hands into the dark fur, and you see her shoulders relax just a little bit. It is a simple tool, but it is very clever for keeping the frost away from your fingers. A historical fact about these coaches is that they were very fast for their time. In the middle of the 1800s, a stagecoach could travel about 10 miles in 1 hour. That might seem slow today, but back then, it was the fastest way to move. To keep this speed, the driver had to change the horses every 10 or 15 miles. These stops were called stages, which is why the carriage is called a stagecoach. You know that soon you will stop at a small stable to get fresh, rested horses, so the journey can continue through the night. The road is getting narrower now. You can see the dark shapes of hedgerows on either side of the coach. A hedgerow is a thick fence made of bushes and small trees. In the summer, they would be full of green leaves and birds, but now they are bare and brown. They look like jagged teeth reaching up toward the sky. The wind whistles through the dry branches, making a sound like a soft sigh. You lean your head against the wooden frame of the window. You can feel the vibration of the wheels through the wood. It is a deep, low hum that you feel in your teeth. Then you see it, the first flake of snow. It does not fall fast. It drifts down from the grey clouds like a tiny, white feather. It is so light that it seems to float on the air. It hits the glass of your window and stays there for a second. You look at it closely. It is shaped like a tiny, perfect star with 6 points. It is beautiful and very white against the dark glass. For a moment, you just watch it. You don't think about the cold or the long road. You just look at the tiny piece of ice. It is a small miracle from the sky. Then, the warmth of your breath on the glass makes it turn into a tiny drop of clear water. It slides down the pane, leaving a thin, wet trail behind it. Another flake follows the first one, then another. Soon, there are 10, then 20, then too many to count. They are not melting as fast now. The glass is getting colder as the night air takes away the last of the day's heat. You watch as the white stars begin to pile up in the corners of the window frame. They look like tiny mounds of sugar. The sky has changed too. It is no longer just grey. It is a heavy, deep colour that feels very close to the ground. The clouds are full of snow, and they are starting to let it go. The light is fading so much that you can barely see the horses in front of the coach. All you can see is the white steam from their breath rising into the air, and the occasional spark when a shoe hits a stone. You take a moment to reflect on how quiet the world has become. Even the sound of the wheels seems softer now. The snow is acting like a carpet on the road, soaking up the noise of the iron rims. You feel very far away from everything. You think about your family. You think about the kitchen fire at home. It feels like a dream that is very far away, across a sea of white and dark. You feel a little bit lonely, but you also feel a sense of wonder. Not many people are out on a night like this. You are one of the few who are moving through the cold, watching the world turn white. The wind is starting to push the snow sideways. Instead of falling straight down, the flakes are dancing in the air. They swirl in circles, caught in the breath of the north wind. You see them fly past the window like tiny white ghosts. You can hear the wind getting louder. It is no longer just a sigh. It is starting to moan. It finds the tiny gaps in the coach door and sends a thin stream of freezing air inside. You tuck your feet deeper into the straw on the floor. The straw is dry and warm, and it makes a soft crackle as you move. The man with the beard across from you reaches up and pulls a heavy lap rug over his knees. A lap rug is a very thick, heavy blanket made of wool or sometimes animal skin. It is big enough to cover 2 or 3 people. He offers a corner of it to the woman with the muff, and she takes it with a small smile. The rug is a dark green colour, and it looks very warm. You wish you had brought one too, but you wrap your coat tighter and focus on the warmth of your own body. You look out the window again. The fields are no longer dark. They are turning a pale, ghostly grey as the snow begins to cover the grass. The trees at the edge of the fields look like they are being painted with white brushes. Every branch and every twig is getting a thin line of snow on top of it. It is very pretty, but you know that snow can be a dangerous thing. It can hide the road. It can make the ground slippery. It can make the horses stumble. But for now, the coach is still moving. The driver is still sitting high on his bench, and the horses are still strong. You hear the driver give a short, sharp whistle to encourage the animals. You hear the jingle of the harness. The sound is clear and bright in the cold air. It reminds you that you are not alone. You are part of a team, and everyone has the same goal. Everyone wants to get to the next stop. Everyone wants to get home for Christmas. The snow is coming down faster now. The flakes are bigger, and they are hitting the window with a tiny tap 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 sound. It is a very peaceful sound, like the ticking of a clock. You close your eyes and listen to the rhythm of the journey, the creak of the wood, the beat of the hooves, the sigh of the wind, and the tap of the snow. It is a song of the winter road. You feel yourself starting to feel a little bit sleepy. The swaying of the coach is like a cradle, moving you back and forth. You let your chin sink into your scarf. You are moving through the white night, and the city is far, far behind. You turn your gaze away from the glass for a moment and look at the people inside the coach. In the dimming light, their faces are becoming harder to see. The young woman across from you has closed her eyes. Her head leans against the side of the wooden wall. The man with the beard is staring straight ahead, his thoughts perhaps far away, a warm house with a roasting goose. The shadows are growing longer. They stretch across the straw on the floor like long, dark fingers. The inside of the coach feels smaller and more private, now that the world outside is disappearing. You look back out of the window, and you notice the sky has changed again. The grey colour has turned into a deep, bruised purple. The clouds are no longer soft and fluffy. They look heavy and solid, like giant mountains made of lead hanging just above the treetops. They seem to be pressing down on the earth, squeezing out the last bits of the day. This time of day, when the sun has gone down, but the night hasn't fully arrived, was often called the gloaming by people in the 1800s. It is a word that means twilight or dusk. It is a quiet, silver time, but today it feels heavy with the coming storm. The sun is now completely hidden. You cannot see the golden orb anymore. There is only a thin, pale line of orange on the far horizon, and even that is being swallowed by the dark clouds. You watch as the last bit of orange fades away. It is like a candle being blown out in a big room. One moment there is a little bit of light, and the next, everything is a deep, cold blue. You feel a tiny shiver run down your back. It is not just the cold, it is the feeling of being out in the world while the night takes over. A historical fact you might find interesting, that before we had bright electric lights, people were much more aware of the moon and the stars. On a journey like this, the driver would hope for a full moon to help him see the road. Without the moon, the world becomes very, very dark. There are no streetlights out here in the country. There are no glowing signs. There is only the darkness and whatever small lights you bring with you. You realize how much you depend on the driver and the horses to find their way through this blackness. Outside, you hear the coachman moving. The coach slows down for a moment, and you hear the heavy thump of his boots hitting the ground. He is going to light the lamps. These are not like the lights we have today. On the side of the coach, there are two large lanterns made of metal and glass. Inside each one is a thick candle made of tallow. Tallow is a type of hard fat taken from cows or sheep. It was used to make cheap candles that could burn for a long time. You hear the scratch of a match and see a tiny flicker of yellow light through the window. The driver has to shield the flame with his hand to keep the wind from blowing it out. As he works, you see him carrying a horn lantern. This is a very old type of tool and a wonderful piece of micro-history. Instead of glass, the sides of the lantern are made of very thin, flat pieces of cow horn. The horn is scraped until it is so thin that light can shine through it. It is not as bright as glass, but it is much stronger. If the lantern bumps against the coach or drops in the snow, the horn will not break like glass would. The light it gives off is soft and warm, a gentle orange glow that reminds you of a hearth fire. You watch the driver hang the lanterns back on their hooks. Now, 2 small circles of light dance on the snow-covered road ahead of the horses. The silence of the evening is very deep now. The only sounds are the rhythmic clop 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 of the horses and the occasional jingle of their harness. You take a moment to just sit in the silence. You don't try to think about the time or how many miles are left. You just listen to the breath of the passengers and the creak of the leather straps. It is a time for reflection. You think about how people have traveled this way for hundreds of years. You are part of a long line of travelers who have watched the sun go down over these same fields. You feel a connection to the past, to the people who sat in this same seat 50 years ago, feeling the same chill and the same hope of reaching home. The sky is now a solid wall of black. The heavy clouds have finished their job of hiding the stars. You can no longer tell where the land ends and the sky begins. Everything is dark except for the small patches of light from the tallow candles. The snow is still falling, but now it looks like gold dust as it flies through the lantern light. The flakes are moving faster now, zooming past the window like tiny white arrows. The wind is picking up speed, and you can hear it whistling through the spokes of the wheels. You look at the man across from you. The light from the outside lanterns catches the brass buttons on his coat. They twinkle like tiny stars in the gloom. He shifts his weight, and the straw under his feet makes a dry, rustling sound. You realize that you are all huddled together in this wooden box, moving through a giant, dark ocean of snow and wind. It makes you feel very small, but it also makes the inside of the coach feel very cozy. The darkness outside makes the small space inside feel like a sanctuary. A sanctuary is a safe place, a place where the storm cannot reach you. You lean your head back and look at the ceiling again. You can see the faint glow of the lanterns reflecting on the polished wood. The wood has a deep grain, and you follow the lines with your eyes until they disappear into the shadows. The coach tilts as it moves around a bend in the road. You feel the weight of your body press against the side of the seat. The horses are working harder now because the road is going uphill. You can hear their heavy breathing, deep, wet gasps of air. It sounds like a big bellows, the tool people use to blow air into a fire. The temperature is dropping even more. You can feel the cold metal of the door handle through your glove. It feels like a piece of ice. You pull your feet up out of the straw for a second to shake them, trying to keep the blood moving. Your toes feel a bit numb, but the wool of your socks is still dry. That is the most important thing. As long as you are dry, you can handle the cold. You think about the driver up on his bench. He has no roof over his head. He is sitting right in the middle of the wind and the snow. You feel a surge of respect for him. He is the guardian of the journey, the one who keeps you moving while you sit in the relative warmth of the cabin. The clouds above are so thick that not a single bit of starlight can get through. It is a true winter night. You think about the term the middle of nowhere. That is exactly where you are. Between the city you left and the home you are seeking, there is only this dark, cold space. But the coach is a steady thing. It feels solid and strong. The wood doesn't break, and the wheels keep turning. You close your eyes for a moment and imagine the horse's manes flying in the wind. You imagine the driver's gloved hands holding the leather reins tight. You are moving forward, one step at a time, through the heart of the winter night. The sun is gone, the world is black, but the journey continues. You are safe in your wooden nest, waiting for the next turn in the road. The coach begins to slow down. You feel the heavy wooden brakes pressing against the iron rims of the wheels. It makes a long, low grinding sound that vibrates up through the floor and into your boots. The horses are no longer running. They are walking slowly now. You hear the driver call out a command, and the coach comes to a full stop. You have reached the first inn on the road. This is the first stage of your journey. In the 1800s, these inns were like the heart of the countryside. They were the places where the mail was dropped off and where news from the city first arrived. A historical fact about these stops is that the horses had to be changed every 10 or 12 miles. Pulling a heavy coach through mud and snow is very hard work, and the horses would get tired quickly. By changing them for fresh, rested horses at each inn, the coach could keep moving at a good speed all through the night. You hear the coach door creak open. The cold air rushes in, smelling of fresh snow and old wood smoke. You stand up slowly. Your legs feel a bit stiff from sitting in the same spot for so long. You step out of the coach and onto the ground. The snow is deeper here than it was in the city. It comes up past your ankles. You walk toward the inn, and your boots make a deep crunch sound in the white powder. The inn is a large building with white walls and dark wooden beams. It looks very old and very strong. Yellow light spills out from the windows and onto the snow, making glowing boxes of gold on the ground. You walk toward the heavy oak door. It has a large iron handle that is shaped like a ring. You reach out and touch it. The metal is so cold that it almost feels like it sticks to your glove. You pull the door open and step inside. The change in the air is wonderful. It is like stepping into a warm hug. The room is filled with the heat from a massive fireplace. This fireplace is the size of a small room. It is built from large, grey stones, and a huge log is burning inside. The flames are bright orange and yellow, dancing and popping as the wood gets hot. You can smell the sweet scent of burning oak and the savoury smell of a thick beef stew cooking in a pot. You walk toward the fire and stand on the stone hearth. The hearth is the flat area of stone in front of the fire. You hold your hands out toward the flames. At first, you can't feel anything because your hands are so cold. Then, a slow tingle starts in your fingertips. It feels like tiny pins and needles pricking your skin. It is the feeling of the blood starting to move again. You watch the steam rise from your wet coat. It looks like a ghostly mist drifting away into the chimney. You find a small wooden table near the fire and sit down. A woman in a white apron comes over to you. She has a kind face and a warm smile. You ask for a pot of tea. A few minutes later, she brings it to you. The teapot is made of thick brown clay, and it is covered with a tea cozy. This is a micro-history detail you might like. A tea cozy is a thick, knitted cover that looks like a woolen hat for the teapot. It is made of heavy wool to trap the heat inside, so the tea stays hot for a long time. It has a colourful pattern of red and green yarn, which looks very cheerful. You pull the tea cozy off and pour the dark liquid into a heavy white mug. The tea is very hot. You can see the steam curling up in the air. You do not drink it right away. Instead, you wrap both of your hands around the warm mug. You feel the heat soaking into your palms and through your fingers. It feels like the best thing in the world. You close your eyes and just hold the mug. You feel the tension leaving your shoulders. The roar of the fire and the quiet chatter of the other passengers in the room. You feel very safe. You take a moment to look around the room in silence. The walls are covered with old paintings of horses and dogs. There is a large clock on the wall with a long pendulum that swings back and forth. Tick-tock, tick-tock. It is a slow, steady sound that matches the beating of your heart. You look at the dust motes dancing in the light of the fire. They look like tiny gold stars floating in the air. Everything in this room has been here for a long time. The wooden tables are worn smooth by the hands of thousands of travelers. You feel like you are part of a very old story. You take a small sip of the tea. It is strong and slightly bitter, but it feels wonderful as it goes down your throat. The warmth spreads from your chest all the way down to your toes. You feel your body relaxing into the chair. For a few minutes, you forget about the blizzard outside. You forget about the dark road and the deep snow. There is only the fire, the tea, and the quiet. You see the man with the beard from the coach sitting at another table. He's eating a large piece of crusty bread. He looks much more relaxed now that he is out of the wind. You notice that everyone in the room is moving slowly. The heat from the fire makes everyone feel a bit sleepy. You watch the way the shadows of the flames move across the ceiling. They look like giant, soft wings flapping gently. After a while, you hear the sound of a horn blowing outside. It is a long, clear note that cuts through the sound of the wind. This is the signal that the fresh horses are ready and the coach is about to leave. You don't want to leave the warmth of the fire, but you know you must. You take one last long drink of your tea, feeling the heat stay in your belly. You put your mug down on the wooden table with a soft thud. You stand up and pull your coat back on. It is still a little bit damp, but it is warm from the fire. You wrap your scarf around your neck, making sure it covers your chin. You walk back toward the heavy door. As you open it, the cold wind tries to push you back. You take a deep breath of the freezing air and step out into the night. The coach is waiting for you. The new horses are black, and they look very strong. They are stomping their feet in the snow, eager to get moving. The lanterns on the side of the coach are glowing brightly. You see the coachman up on his seat, wrapped in a thick rug. He looks like a statue made of ice and wool. You climb back into the coach and find your seat in the straw. The door shuts with a solid clack. You are back in your little wooden world, but you feel stronger now. Your hands are warm, your belly is full of tea, and you are ready for the next part of the journey. The horses begin to move, and the light of the inn slowly fades away into the white dark. The coach leaves the warm circle of the inn behind. You look back one last time through the small window, watching the yellow light of the window shrink until it is just a tiny dot in the dark. Now, the road begins to change. The wide, open fields are gone. The world feels like it is closing in on you. The horses are pulling the coach into the edge of a great forest. The trees here are very old and very tall. In the summer, they would be full of green leaves that block out the sun. But now, in the middle of winter, they are bare. Their branches reach out over the road like long, thin fingers. Because of the snow, the trees do not look brown or grey. They are covered in a thick layer of white. In the dim light of the coach lanterns, they look like tall, silent ghosts standing along the side of the path. They seem to be watching the coach pass by. You feel a new kind of cold here. In the open fields, the wind was a big, wide force. Here in the woods, the wind is different. It is quieter, but it is sharper. It whistles through the empty branches, making a sound like someone is whispering just outside the door. You hear a low moan as the wind moves through the pine trees. Pine trees are the ones that stay green all year. Their needles are now heavy with snow, and when the wind blows, they shake and send a shower of white dust onto the roof of the coach. Thump! A big clump of snow falls from a high branch and hits the wooden top. It makes you jump a little in your seat. Inside the coach, the air has become very still. The other passengers are quiet. The young woman is tucked into her corner, and the man with the beard has pulled his hat down over his eyes. You look down at your legs. You are wearing a special piece of clothing to keep your legs dry. These are called spatterdashes. This is a micro-history detail that people used back then to protect their trousers. They are long covers made of thick, tough cloth or leather. They wrap around your lower leg and button up the side. They cover the top of your boots, so that snow and mud cannot get inside. Your spattered ashes are made of grey wool, and they feel very stiff and strong. You reach down and touch the buttons. They are made of smooth bone. You are glad you have them, because the snow is getting deeper every minute. As the coach moves deeper into the woods, you see a small wooden house by the side of the road. It has a long wooden pole that goes across the path. This is a turnpike. A historical fact about the 1800s is that many of the main roads were not owned by the king or the government. They were owned by groups of people called turnpike trusts. These people fixed the roads and kept them safe. To pay for the work, they charged people money to pass through the gate. You hear the coachman call out to the man in the little house. The gatekeeper comes out, wrapped in a heavy cloak. He lifts the pole, and the coach rolls through. This is how the roads were kept clear for the mail and the travellers, even in the deep woods. The coach moves slowly now. The ground under the trees is very soft with fallen needles and deep snow. The horses have to lift their knees high to move forward. You can hear the sound of the wheels changing. Instead of the rumble clack of the stones, there is a soft, wet shush shush sound. It is a very rhythmic sound. It makes the world feel even more quiet. You take a moment to look out at the forest in silence. There are no lights here. There are no houses 4 miles. It is just you, the trees, and the dark. You look into the spaces between the tree trunks. It is so black in there that it looks like a solid wall. You wonder what animals are watching you from the shadows. Maybe a deer is standing still, its heart beating fast as the big red coach passes by. Maybe an owl is sitting on a branch, its big eyes reflecting the light of the tallow candles. The forest feels alive, but it is a secret kind of life. It is a world that belongs to the night. The light from the lanterns on the side of the coach only reaches a little way into the woods. It catches the edges of the tree trunks, making them shine like silver. The snow on the ground looks like a sea of white sugar. Every now and then, you see a bush that is so covered in snow it looks like a giant white bear sitting by the road. Your mind starts to play little tricks on you. You think you see shapes moving in the trees, but it is just the shadows dancing as the coach sways. You feel a sense of reflection. You think about how big the world is. In the city, everything is built by people. Everything is made of brick and stone. But out here, nature is the boss. The trees have been here longer than any city building. The snow falls where it wants to fall. You feel like a tiny guest passing through a giant kingdom. It is a humbling feeling. It makes you feel very small, but it also makes you feel very lucky to see such a beautiful, lonely place. The air inside the coach is getting a bit damp. You can see the moisture from everyone's breath turning into a thin fog. It clings to the wooden walls. You take your glove and draw a small circle on the window glass so you can keep looking out. The forest seems to go on forever. The road turns and twists, following the path of a frozen stream. You see the ice on the water, looking like dark glass. The wind picks up again, and you hear a loud crack. A small branch has broken under the weight of the snow. It sounds like a gunshot in the quiet woods. The horses startle for a second, and you feel the coach jerk. But the driver is clever. He speaks to them in a low, calm voice. You can't hear his words, but you can hear the tone of his voice. It is steady and brave. The horses settle down and continue their slow walk through the white powder. You lean your head back and close your eyes for a minute. You listen to the sounds of the woods. You hear the wind, the creak of the wood, and the breath of the horses. It is a very deep, ancient sound. It is the sound of the night shift, the people and animals that are awake while the rest of the world sleeps. You feel a strange kind of comfort in the dark. The trees are like tall guards, protecting the road. The snow is like a soft blanket, hushed and still. You are moving through the heart of the forest, heading toward the other side. You know that eventually, the trees will thin out and the open sky will return. But for now, you are a traveler in the ghost woods, tucked away in your wooden box, moving slowly through the silver and the black. As the coach moves out from the thickest part of the woods, the shelter of the tall trees begins to fade. You can feel the change in the way the carriage moves. In the forest, the air was still and heavy. But now that the land is opening up again, the wind has found you. It is the north wind, and it is a powerful force. In the 1800s, people often talked about the north wind as if it were a living thing. They called it the breath of winter. To you, sitting inside the wooden walls, it sounds like a giant is blowing across the top of a giant bottle. It starts as a low, deep moan and then rises into a high, thin scream. The sound is everywhere. It is not just outside. It seems to vibrate through the very wood of the coach. You hear it whistling through the cracks in the door and singing in the spokes of the wheels. The wind catches the edge of the roof and makes the whole carriage tilt just a little bit to the left. You feel your shoulder press against the side of the seat. The coach is heavy, made of solid oak and iron, but the wind is stronger. It pushes against the flat sides of the carriage like a big, invisible hand. You feel a small sense of whirring in your chest, but then the coach settles back down as the horses pull harder against the gale. A gale is just a very strong, steady wind that does not stop. You look out the window, but the view has changed. The snow is no longer falling in pretty, soft stars. The wind has picked up the snow from the ground and mixed it with the snow falling from the sky. It is a swirl of white chaos. It looks like a thick, white curtain is being shaken right in front of the glass. You can no longer see the trees or the road. You can only see the white blur passing by. Every now and then, a gust of wind hits the side of the coach so hard that the snow sounds like handfuls of dry sand being thrown against the wood. Clatter-tap, clatter-tap. It is a dry, sharp sound that makes you glad you are not an outside passenger. Up on the roof, you hear the driver moving. You hear a heavy, slapping sound. This is the sound of the storm apron. This is a very important piece of microhistory for a winter journey. A storm apron is a huge sheet of very thick, heavy leather. It is soaked in oil to make it waterproof. The driver wraps it over his legs and buttons it to the sides of his wooden bench. It is so stiff and heavy that it can stand up on its own. It keeps the freezing wind and the wet snow from reaching the driver's skin. You can hear the wind catching the leather, making it snap like a flag in a storm. Snap, pop. You think about the driver up there, his hands gripping the reins, his face hidden behind a tall collar, fighting the north wind to keep you moving. A historical fact that shows how dangerous this could be is the story of the Great Blizzard of 1836. That storm was so big and the wind was so strong that it blew snow into piles that were 20 feet high. Many coaches were buried completely in the white drifts. People in those days knew that once the north wind started to howl like this, the journey became a race. You have to reach the next shelter before the snow gets too deep for the horses to walk. You can feel the urgency in the way the coachman calls out to the team. His voice is faint, nearly lost in the roar of the wind, but you hear the sharp higher as he encourages the horses to keep their heads down and push forward. Inside the coach, the air is moving. Even though the door is shut and the windows are closed, the wind is so strong that it finds every tiny hole. You feel a thin, icy stream of air hitting your neck. It feels like a cold finger touching your skin. You pull your scarf up higher, right under your nose. The smell of the coach is changing. The The scent of the dry straw is being replaced by the smell of the cold itself. It is a metallic, sharp smell, like frozen iron. You reach out and touch the wall next to you. The wood is freezing cold. It feels like touching the side of a block of ice. You take a moment to sit in silence, listening to the music of the storm. It is a wild, lonely sound. There is the deep roar of the wind, the high whistle of the gaps, and the steady thud-thud of the horses' hooves. The hooves sound different now. They are muffled by the growing layer of snow on the road. It is a soft, heavy sound, like someone beating a rug in the distance. You close your eyes and imagine the world outside. It is a world of pure white and deep grey, where the wind is the king. You feel a deep sense of reflection. How many people are safe in their beds right now, not knowing that you are out here in the heart of the gale? You feel like you are on the edge of the world, in a place where only the brave and the lucky travel. You notice the young woman across from you has woken up. She looks toward the window, her eyes wide. She sees the white blur and the way the snow is piling up on the ledge outside. She reaches out and pulls the heavy wool rug tighter over her knees. You see her fingers trembling just a little bit. You want to tell her it will be all right, but the wind is so loud that you would have to shout. Instead, you give her a small, calm nod. You try to look as if you are not worried. You lean back and fold your arms, showing that you trust the coach and the driver. The wind makes a new sound now. It is a low, pulsing vibration. It sounds like a large cat purring, but much, much louder. You realize this is the wind moving through the luggage on the roof. The trunks and bags are creating a shape that the wind has to flow around, and it makes the whole coach hum. It is a strange, haunting sound. It makes the carriage feel like it is singing a song of the winter road. You listen to the rhythm of it. It rises and falls with every gust of the storm. You think about your home again. You think about the garden gate and the way it clicks when you shut it. You think about the smell of the kitchen when a cake is baking in the oven. These thoughts are like little fires in your mind, keeping you warm while the north wind screams outside. You are tucked into your corner, your feet buried in the straw, and your heavy coat wrapped around you. You are in a small, wooden fortress. The storm can roar and the wind can howl, but as long as the wheels keep turning and the horses keep pulling, you are safe. The coach hits a small bump, and you feel the wheels slide just a little bit on the icy road. The driver quickly uses the reins to steady the horses. You feel the iron rims catch the ground again. The coach straightens out and continues its slow, steady push against the wind. You realize that the storm is getting stronger. The breath of winter is turning into a full-blown blizzard. But for now, the lanterns are still lit, and the path is still there, hidden somewhere under the white. You take a deep, slow breath and let the sound of the wind wash over you. It is a powerful, beautiful, and scary sound all at the same time. You are a witness to the power of nature, and you are moving through it, one cold mile at a time. The rhythm of the journey is changing again. 4 hours. You have been used to the steady rock and roll of the wooden box. You have grown used to the rumble-clack of the wheels and the swaying of the seats. But now, the movement feels different. It is no longer a smooth roll. It is a struggle. You feel the coach jerk forward, then slow down, then jerk again. It feels like the carriage is trying to push through something thick and heavy, like a spoon moving through a bowl of thick porridge. You look out the window, and you can see why. The snow is no longer just a layer on the ground. It has gathered into great, white hills. These are called snowdrifts. A historical fact about the 19th century is that there were no big machines to clear the roads. There were no snowplows like the ones we see today. If the snow fell in a certain way, the wind would blow it against a hedge or a wall until it piled up several feet deep. In a bad winter, these drifts could swallow a whole coach. The roads were often narrow, and once the snow filled the space between the hedges, the path simply vanished. You hear the horses. They are no longer walking with a steady beat. You hear their heavy hooves hitting the snow with a loud thud crunch. They are breathing very hard now. The sound of their breath is loud and wet, a deep huff that you can hear even over the wind. They are pulling with all their might. You feel the coach tilt to the right as the wheels on one side climb up a mound of snow. Then, with a sudden lurch, the coach drops back down. Your shoulder hits the wooden frame of the window. The coachman is calling out to the horses. His voice is a bit higher now, full of effort. Walk on. Pull away, he cries. You hear the sharp crack of his whip in the air, not to hit the horses, but to make a loud noise to keep them moving. But the coach is getting slower and slower. The wheels are no longer spinning. They are sliding. The iron rims are slick with ice, and the deep snow is packing in between the spokes. The spokes are the wooden sticks that go from the center of the wheel to the outside edge. When the snow fills the gaps, the wheel becomes a solid, heavy disc that cannot turn. Then, the moment happens. The coach gives one final, heavy shudder. You feel the horses give a great pull, their muscles straining against the leather harness. You hear the wood of the carriage groan under the pressure, and then everything stops. The silence that follows is the heaviest thing you have ever felt. Take a moment to just sit in that silence. After hours of noise, the wind, the wheels, the horses, the creaking wood, the sudden lack of sound is startling. It is a deep, cold silence that feels like it is pressing against your ears. The wind is still there, but it is muffled by the wall of snow that has built up around the side of the coach. You are no longer moving. You are no longer heading home. You are just a wooden box sitting in a white desert. It is a moment of pure reflection. You realize how much power the winter has. With just enough flakes of frozen water, it can stop the fastest machine of the age. You feel very small and very still. You look out the window. The snow is so high on your side that it covers the bottom half of the glass. It looks like a solid wall of white marble. You can see the tiny patterns in the snow where the wind has carved little lines and ridges. It looks beautiful, but you know it is a trap. You are stuck inside the coach. The other passengers have stopped moving too. No one speaks. You look at the young woman. She has pulled her hands out of her muff and is holding the edge of the seat very tightly. The man with the beard has sat up straight, his hat tilted back so he can see. You can see the white of his eyes in the dim lantern light. Everyone is waiting to see what happens next. You hear a sound from above. It is the coachman climbing down from his seat. You hear his boots hit the snow. Hump. It is a soft, deep sound, which tells you the snow is very, very deep. He must be standing in snow up to his waist. You hear him walking around to the side of the coach. He's grunting with the effort of moving his legs through the drifts. He pulls something from the back of the coach. You hear the sound of metal scraping against wood. This is a micro-history detail that every coach carried for a night like this. A wooden snow shovel with an iron edge. In those days, a shovel was not just a piece of plastic. It was made of thick, heavy oak. Because wood is soft, the very tip of the shovel was covered with a thin plate of iron, held on by small nails. This iron edge allowed the coachman to break through the crust of the ice without splitting the wooden blade. You hear the scrape shush as he begins to dig. Scrape, shush, scrape, shush. It is a lonely sound. You imagine him out there in the dark, the wind blowing snow into his eyes, trying to clear a path for the wheels. He's working alone in the middle of a blizzard. You feel a sense of guilt sitting inside while he's out there. You look at your own hands, tucked into your warm coat. You wonder if you should get out and help, but the coachman has already shouted a warning to stay inside. He does not want the passengers to get lost in the whiteout or to freeze their limbs. The coachman moves to the front to check on the horses. You hear him talking to them. Steady, girls. Steady, boys. His voice is low and calm now. He's checking their legs to make each horse is safe. He knows that if a horse breaks a leg in a snowdrift, the journey is over for everyone. You hear the jingle of the harness as the horses shake their heads, trying to get the snow out of their ears. They are tired, and you can feel their heat through the wooden walls. They are like 4 large stoves, breathing out steam and warmth into the freezing night. You lean back against the seat. The straw on the floor feels thin now. The cold is starting to seep up through the floorboards more quickly since the coach is no longer moving. When you are moving, the air circulates, but now the cold is just sitting there, heavy and thick. You wiggle your toes inside your boots, making sure they are still warm. You think about the gifts in your carpet bag, the tin of biscuits, the wooden toy. They feel like they belong to another world, a world of warm rooms and bright lights. The coachman comes back to the door. He knocks on the wood with his gloved hand. Thump, thump, thump. You see his face appear at the window. He has a thick layer of frost on his eyebrows and his beard. He looks like a man made of ice. He tells you that the drift is too deep to shovel quickly. The wheels are buried up to the hubs. The hub is the very middle of the wheel where the axle goes through. If the hubs are buried, the coach is anchored to the ground. He explains that he needs to clear the snow from under the body of the coach. If the belly of the carriage is sitting on the snow, the wheels can't get any grip. He goes back to his digging. Scrape, shush, scrape, shush. You find yourself breathing in time with the sound of the shovel. It is the only thing that connects you to the outside world. You are stuck in the white deep, and the road has vanished. You are not sure how long it will take to get moving again, or if you will move at all tonight. You look at the small circle you drew on the glass earlier. It is starting to freeze over again, the ice crystals growing like tiny trees across your view. You are truly in the heart of the storm now, and the world of home feels very, very far away. You close your eyes and listen to the shovel, hoping for the sound of the wheels to return. The coach stays still, and the cold begins to feel much heavier. It is no longer just a chill in the air. It feels like the cold has weight, pressing against the wooden walls. You decide you cannot sit still any longer. The sound of the coachman's shovel is slow and lonely. You reach for the heavy iron handle of the door. It is so cold that your glove almost sticks to the metal. With a strong push, you force the door open. The world outside is a wall of white. The wind hits you like a physical blow, a great rush of freezing air that takes your breath away for a second. You step down from the iron step and immediately sink. The snow is not just at your ankles, it is up to your knees, and in some places, it reaches your waist. It is soft and light, like cold flour. Every time you move, you have to lift your leg high and stamp down to find the solid ground hidden somewhere below. You see the coachman near the front wheels. He looks like a ghost in the dark. His thick greatcoat is white with frost, and his breath is a thick cloud around his head. He is using his wooden shovel to dig out the snow from under the carriage. You walk toward him, your boots making a deep crump crump sound. You offer to help. He looks at you for a moment, his eyes red from the wind, and then he hands you a small tool from the back of the coach. It is a carriage jack. This is a micro-history tool that was very important for long trips. It is a heavy piece of iron with a long handle. In the 1800s, if a wheel got stuck or broke, the driver used this to lift the heavy coach up. You place the flat base of the jack or a piece of wood the driver has laid on the snow. You slide the metal arm under the axle, the thick bar that holds the wheels together. You pump the handle. It is hard work. Your muscles strain, and you can feel the heat of your own body rising under your wool coat. Slowly, the heavy coach begins to rise out of the white drift. A historical fact about these blizzards is that people often had to work together to survive. In the 19th century, there were no rescue teams to call. There were no phones. If you got stuck, you were on your own. You and the driver are now a team. You feel a strange sense of pride as the coach lifts an inch, then two. You are fighting the winter with your own hands. The driver uses his shovel to clear the path under the wheels, throwing the snow far into the dark. You take a moment of reflection. You stand there, breathing hard, looking at the horses. They are standing perfectly still, their heads bowed against the wind. The lanterns on the side of the coach cast a dim, flickering light on the snow. Everything else is black. You realize how silent the world is when it is covered in deep white. The snow acts like a giant pillow, soaking up every sound. Even the wind feels a bit quieter when you are standing deep in a drift. You feel very connected to the earth and the sky in this moment. It is just you, the metal of the jack, and the endless snow. The driver nods at you. He takes a handful of dry straw from the floor of the coach and stuffs it under the wheels. This is to give the iron rims something to grip so they don't just spin on the ice. He tells you to get back inside. He's going to try to move the team. You climb back into the small cabin. Your trousers are wet at the bottom, and you can feel the cold dampness starting to soak into your socks. But you don't mind. You feel awake and alive. Inside, the young woman looks at you with wide eyes. You are covered in snow, looking like a white statue yourself. You brush the flakes off your sleeves and sit down. The coach feels even smaller now, but it feels stronger too. You have seen how it is made. You have touched the iron and the wood. You know it is a tough machine. You hear the driver climb back onto his high seat. You hear him shake the leather reins. Now, pull away, he shouts. His voice is a roar that breaks the silence. You feel the horses lean into their collars. The coach groans. The wood screams as it twists. You hold your breath, your hands gripping the edge of the seat. For a second, nothing happens. The wheels spin, and you hear the straw crunching under the iron. Then, there is a great lurch. The coach moves forward. It feels like the carriage is breaking free from the earth itself. You move a foot, then a yard. The horses are jumping through the snow, their powerful legs breaking the white crust. You are moving again. The rhythm of the road is back, but it is slower and heavier than before. You lean back and let out a long breath. You are still in the deep white, but you are no longer a prisoner of the drift. The journey home continues, one slow step at a time. The coach is moving, but the pace is very slow. You can feel the great weight of the horses as they leap and plunge through the white sea. This is not like the steady trot you were used to in the city. Now, it is a series of heavy jumps. The horses lift their front legs high, their hooves breaking the crust of the snow, and then they push off with their strong back legs. Every time they leap, the coach jerks forward with a sharp thud. Inside, you are tossed about like a dry leaf in the wind. You have to hold onto the leather strap hanging from the ceiling to keep yourself from sliding off the bench. You look at the horses through the front window. They are working so hard that their bodies are completely covered in white steam. It looks as if they are made of clouds. In the 1800s, people knew that horses were the lifeblood of the country. Without them, everything would stop. These horses are large and powerful, likely of the Cleveland Bay breed, which were famous for being strong enough to pull heavy coaches through the worst mud and snow. A historical fact about these animals is that they were bred to have very thick bones and large hooves, which acted like natural snowshoes to help them stay on top of the drifts. You notice something hanging from the harness of the lead horse. It is a set of harness bells. This is a beautiful micro-history detail. These were not just for Christmas music. They were a safety tool. In a thick blizzard or deep fog, A driver could not see another coach coming toward him. The bells made a bright, ringing sound that could be heard through the wind, letting everyone know that a heavy team was moving through the dark. Jingle ring, jingle ring. The sound is clear and high, like tiny hammers hitting silver. It is a cheerful sound in such a cold, lonely place. It reminds you that even in the middle of a storm, there is a kind of order and care. The wind has dropped for a moment, and the world goes very quiet again. In this silence, you can hear the horse's breath very clearly. It is a wet, heavy sound, huff, huff, huff. You can hear the jingle of the bells and the soft hiss of the coach sliding over the snow. You take a moment for reflection. You think about the strength of these animals. They do not know about Christmas or the gifts in your bag. They only know the weight of the collar and the command of the driver. You feel a deep sense of thanks for them. Your life and your safety are held in their strong muscles and their brave hearts. You sit very still, letting the rhythm of their breathing calm your own mind. The snow outside is beautiful in a scary way, because the moon is hidden. The only light comes from the tallow candles in the coach lamps. The light hits the snow and turns it into a million tiny diamonds. Each flake reflects the yellow glow, making the ground look like it is covered in jewels. But then you see how high the snow has piled up against the hedges. In some places, the white walls are higher than the top of the coach. It is like traveling through a long, white tunnel. You feel very enclosed, as if the world has shrunk down to just this path and this wooden box. Inside the coach, the cold is becoming more stubborn. You can see the young woman's breath coming out in little puffs of white mist. She's rubbing her hands together inside her muff. You decide to help. You reach down into the straw and gather a big armful of it. You pile it over her feet and the feet of the man with the beard. The straw is a bit dusty, and it smells like a dry barn, but it is excellent for trapping heat. You push the stalks down with your boots to make a thick, yellow carpet. The woman gives you a small, tired smile of thanks. You look at your own hands. Your gloves are made of thick leather lined with rabbit fur. They are good gloves, but the tips of your fingers are starting to feel a bit dull. You tuck your hands into your armpits to share the heat from your body. You think about the driver. He's still up there, exposed to the freezing air. He has to keep his hands out to hold the reins. He cannot tuck them away. You wonder how he can still feel the leather straps. You realize that the night shift for a coachman is one of the hardest jobs in the world. He has to stay awake, stay alert, and stay brave while the rest of the country is tucked under warm quilts. The coach begins to tilt again. The road is turning, and the horses are struggling with a new drift. You feel the carriage lean so far to the left that you are sure it will tip over. You press your boots into the floor and brace your shoulder against the wall. The wood groans. It sounds like a large tree about to break in the wind. Creak. You hold your breath. Then, you feel the horses give one more giant push. The coach levels out, and the wheels find the ground again. You take a deep breath. The air inside the coach is very thin and cold, but it feels good in your lungs. You look out the window and see a single tree standing alone in a field. It is covered in so much ice that it looks like a giant chandelier made of glass. Every branch is encased in a clear, frozen shell. It is a sight you would never see in the city. It is a secret beauty that only the winter travelers get to see. You lean your head back and listen to the bells. Jingle ring, jingle ring. The sound is steady now. The horses have found a better part of the road where the wind has blown the snow clear. The coach is moving a little faster. The shush-shush of the snow against the wood is like a lullaby. You feel the heavy wool of your coat pressing against your chest. You are safe. You are moving. The blizzard is still there, but you are winning the battle. You close your eyes for a second, letting the sound of the bells and the rhythmic plunging of the horses carry you further into the night. You are 1 mile closer to home. The horses are the heroes of this hour. You can feel their power in every lurch of the coach. You think about how far they have come and how far they still have to go. You feel a sense of peace. The world is white and wild, but you are in good hands. You are tucked into your straw, wrapped in your wool, and moving through the heart of the winter. The journey continues, but the cold is now joined by a new feeling, hunger. Your belly feels empty and tight, and you realize you have not eaten anything since the small bag of chestnuts back in the city. You reach into the pocket of your heavy greatcoat and find a small parcel wrapped in brown paper. It is a piece of traveling food you bought before leaving. Inside the paper is a large cold pork pie. In the 1800s, this was the perfect food for a long journey. A historical fact about the pork pie is that the crust was originally made to be very thick and hard. It was not just to taste good. It was a protective box for the meat inside. The thick pastry kept the meat fresh and clean during long trips on dusty or snowy roads. You break off a piece of the crust. It is cold and very firm, but as you chew it, you feel a little bit of energy returning to your body. The meat inside is seasoned with pepper and salt, and it tastes wonderful in the middle of the frozen night. The coach moves slowly through a narrow lane. The wind has died down to a whisper, but the air feels even colder now that the air is still. You see the coachman reach for a small metal box near his feet. He opens it, and you see a tiny glow of orange. This is a brazier. A brazier is a small metal pan or bucket that holds hot coals from a fire. It has holes in the sides to let the air in, so the coals stay hot. This is a specific micro-history tool that kept many drivers from losing their toes to the frost. The driver puts his gloved hands near the heat for a second before taking up the reins again. You take a moment of reflection. You sit in the quiet coach, watching the steam rise from your own breath. You think about how simple things become when the world is this cold and dark. In the city, you worrying about many things: your clothes, your money, the gossip of the streets. But out here, in the middle of a blizzard, you only care about 3 things: warmth, food, and the road ahead. It is a very clean way to feel. You feel like you are being stripped down to your truest self. You are just a human being trying to get home, and every small comfort feels like a giant gift. The snow outside is so deep that it has covered the stone walls that usually line the road. Now, the world looks like one smooth, white sheet. You cannot tell where the road ends and the ditches begin. The only way the driver knows where to go is by looking at the tops of the hedges. They stick out of the snow like tiny, dark islands. You hear the horses snorting. They are clearing the ice from their nostrils. Every time they breathe out, a cloud of white mist shoots forward, looking like smoke from a small engine. You share a piece of your pork pie with the man with the beard. He takes it with a nod and a quiet thank you. He looks very tired. You realize that everyone in the coach is leaning against each other now, trying to share what little heat is left. You are no longer strangers. You are a small group of people bound together by the winter. You feel a sense of safety in this closeness. The wooden walls of the coach feel like a sturdy fortress, protecting you from the vast, white empty world outside. The sound of the wheels has changed again. The snow is so packed down now that the iron rims are making a high, singing noise as they slide. Eesh, eesh. It is a very beautiful, ghostly sound. It sounds like the earth is singing to the moon. You look up through the window, hoping to see a star, but the clouds are still thick and heavy. The night is a long, dark tunnel, but you are moving through it. You take another bite of your pie and settle back into the straw. You are warm enough for now. You have food in your belly, and the horses are still strong. The journey is hard, but you are winning. The coach is a small, dark room moving through the giant night. You finish the last of your pork pie and carefully wrap the greasy brown paper into a small ball. You tuck it away in your pocket so it does not clutter the straw at your feet. The food has put a little fire in your belly, but the rest of your body is still feeling the deep, steady pull of the winter air. Inside the coach, we have become very quiet. We are sharing a simple meal in the dark, and it feels like a very old way of living. In the 1800s, travelers often carried their own food because you never knew if the coach would get stuck or is the next inn would have anything left in the kitchen. A historical fact about this time is that people were much more used to being cold than we are today. They wore many layers of wool and silk, and they knew how to sit very still to save their energy. You look at the others. The young woman is eating a small piece of hard, salted beef that she pulled from her bundle. The man with the beard is chewing on a piece of dry bread. We are all eating the same simple things, and it makes us feel like equals. One micro-history detail you might notice if you looked closely at the man's bread is that it is quite dark and heavy. This was often called horse bread or traveller's bread. It was made from a mix of beans, peas, and a little bit of flour. It was not very soft, but it stayed fresh 4 days and gave a person a lot of strength to keep going. You can hear the dry crunch as he bites into it. It is a very solid, honest sound in the middle of the storm. You take a moment of reflection. You watch the way the lantern light from outside flickers through the window. It creates a rhythm of light and shadow on the faces of your fellow travelers. Light, then dark. Light, then dark. You think about how we are all heading toward different homes, different families, and different lives. But for right now, in this wooden box, we are all the same. We are all just souls moving through the white. You feel a deep sense of calm. The world outside is wild and dangerous, but inside, there is a strange kind of peace. You feel safe because you are not alone. The horses are still pushing forward. You hear the jingle of the harness bells, but the sound is getting a bit slower now. The animals are getting tired. They have been fighting the snow for a long time. You hear the coachman whistle to them, a low, sweet sound that is meant to give them heart. He is not using his whip. He is talking to them like they are his friends. You realize that he loves his horses. They are the ones who will get him through the night and back to his own warm bed. You look out the window and see that the snow has stopped falling for a moment. The air is clear, but the clouds are still there, hiding the moon. The world looks like it is made of grey smoke and white bone. You can see the dark shapes of trees in the distance, but they look very far away. Everything feels very big and very empty. You pull your thick wool blanket closer around your chest. The wool is heavy and warm, and it smells of sheep and old rain. It is a comforting, earthy smell. Inside the coach, the air is getting a bit thicker with the smell of the salted meat and the damp straw. It is a very human smell. You close your eyes and listen to the sounds of the journey. You hear the shush of the snow, the creak of the wood, and the steady thump of the horses. It is a song that tells you that you are still moving. You are not stuck. You are not lost. You are on the road to Christmas. You let your head rest against the side of the coach and feel the vibration of the wheels in your bones. You are tired, but you are happy to be here, in the heart of the winter story. The cold is no longer a visitor in the coach. It has become a permanent resident. It has found its way through the thick wooden doors and the heavy glass windows. You can feel it sitting on your shoulders and wrapping itself around your knees. To fight it, you reach for the thick wool blankets that are stored in the overhead netting. These blankets are not like the thin ones you might have at home. They are made of heavy, coarse wool that feels rough against your skin, but they are incredibly strong. A micro-history detail I find interesting is the way these blankets were made. Many of them were called Hudson's Bay blankets. They were famous for having small black lines, or points, woven into the edge of the fabric. These points told the beer how big and how heavy the blanket was without having to unfold the whole thing. Your blanket has 4 points, which means it is very large and very thick. You shake it out, and a few bits of dry lint float into the air like grey snow. You wrap it tightly around your shoulders, tucking the edges under your arms until you feel like you are inside a warm cocoon. Inside the coach, the light from the lanterns outside is getting dimmer. The candles are burning low, and the tallow is melting into little pools of white wax. The shadows on the walls are moving slowly, stretching and shrinking as the coach sways. You look at the young woman across from you. She has wrapped her blanket over her head like a hood, leaving only her eyes and nose showing. The man with the beard is snoring softly, a low, rhythmic sound that competes with the whistling of the wind. Even in this freezing box, the human body finds a way to rest. A historical fact about these journeys is that the mail was often more important than the people. Under the driver's seat, there is a locked wooden chest full of letters and parcels. In the 1800s, the Royal Mail had strict rules. The coach had to keep moving, no matter how deep the snow was, because people were waiting for news of their families or their businesses. You were part of this moving post office. You were traveling with the thoughts and secrets of hundreds of people, all tucked away in paper and ink, moving through the blizzard. You take a moment for reflection. You lean your head back and look at the tiny sparks of frost forming on the iron bolts of the coach. Everything is so quiet. When you close your eyes, the world feels like it has disappeared. There is no city, no work, and no noise. There is only the feeling of the wool against your chin and the steady, slow movement of the carriage. You feel a strange sense of being between places. You are not where you started, and you are not yet where you are going. You are in a middle world made of snow and silence. It is a very peaceful feeling, like being the only person awake in a sleeping world. The wool of the blanket starts to warm up from your body heat. You can smell the faint scent of lanolin. Lanolin is a natural oil found in sheep's wool that helps to keep the sheep dry in the rain. Even though the blanket has been cleaned, that earthy, sheep-like smell remains. It is a comforting smell that reminds you of the countryside and the farmers who work the land. You feel a connection to the animals and the people who made this fabric. Their hard work is what is keeping you from freezing tonight. You look down at your feet. The straw you piled up earlier is now flat and cold. You use your boots to kick it back into a heap, trying to trap a bit more air around your toes. You realize that your boots are the only things between you and the ice. They are made of thick cowhide leather, and you polish them with tallow before you left. The fat helps to keep the water out, but the cold still finds a way to seep through the sawless. You wiggle your toes, feeling the wool of your socks rubbing against the leather. It is a small movement, but it helps to keep the blood flowing. The coach hits a patch of ice, and the wheels make a high, screeching sound. It sounds like a bird crying out in the dark. The carriage slides sideways for a second before the horses pull it straight again. You feel a jolt in your stomach, but you don't feel afraid. You have grown to trust the weight of the coach and the skill of the driver. You know that as long as the horses are moving, you are moving toward home. You pull the blanket up even higher until it covers your mouth. Your breath makes the wool a bit damp, but the heat stays inside. You look out the window at the white blur of the world. The trees are gone now, and the road is crossing a high, open moor. A moor is a big, flat piece of land with no trees and very few houses. Here, the wind is much stronger. It hits the side of the coach with a loud thud, making the wooden panels vibrate. You can hear the snow hitting the glass like 1,000 tiny needles. Tick, tick, dash, tick, dash, tick. You think about the driver. He doesn't have a 4-point blanket wrapped around his head. He has to stay sharp and watch the road. You feel a deep sense of respect for the people who work the night shift while everyone else is safe inside. The driver and the horses are out here, facing the giant white monster of the storm. You say a silent thank you to the man on the bench. You hope his hands are still warm enough to hold the reins. The silence inside the coach is very deep now. The snoring of the man has stopped, and everyone is just breathing quietly. You feel the rhythm of the journey in your heart. Each beat of the horse's hooves is one step closer to your mother's kitchen. Each jingle of the harness is a promise that you will reach the end of the road. You let yourself sink into the heavy wool. The world is cold, the wind is loud, and the snow is deep, but you are wrapped in the warmth of the past. You are a traveler in the night, safe in your wooden nest. The coach is moving along the high moor now, and the air has changed again. It is no longer just cold, it is biting, but amidst the roar of the wind, you hear a new sound. It is a sharp, sudden crack. At first, you think it is the driver's whip, but the sound is different. It is deeper and more brittle. It sounds like a large pane of glass breaking in a quiet room. Then you hear it again from the other side. Snap! It is the sound of the world freezing solid. In the 1800s, people knew that the most dangerous part of a blizzard wasn't just the snow, but the ice that followed. When the temperature drops very fast, the moisture inside the trees begins to freeze. As the ice grows, it expands and pushes against the wood from the inside until the branches simply burst. A historical fact about these cold snaps is that the cracking of the ice could be as loud as a gunshot. It was a sign that the great frost had truly arrived. You look out the window and see the bushes by the side of the road. They are no longer soft and white with snow. They are encased in a thick, clear shell of ice. In the lantern light, they look like giant pieces of sugar candy. The branches of the few lonely trees on the moor are heavy and stiff. They do not bend in the wind. They shake with a dry, metallic rattle. You realize that if a large branch were to fall now, it would be as heavy and hard as a bar of iron. A micro-history detail you notice on the coach itself is the ice forming on the leather curtains. Some coaches had leather flaps instead of glass for the windows to save weight. Your coach has glass, but there are leather straps and ties all around the door. These straps are now so frozen that they are as stiff as pieces of wood. You see the iron buckles covered in a thick layer of white rime. Rime is a special kind of ice that forms when tiny drops of water in the fog freeze onto a cold surface. It looks like white fur or feathers growing out of the metal. You reach out and touch a buckle. It is so cold it feels like it burns your fingertip. You take a moment for reflection. The world outside is completely frozen. It is a world where nothing moves except for you, the horses, and the wind. Everything else is locked in a crystal prison. You think about the tiny plants and the sleeping animals hidden under the snow. They are all waiting for the sun, just like you are. You feel a sense of wonder at how quiet a frozen world can be. The ice seems to hold the sound, keeping it trapped in the air. You feel like you are moving through a giant museum made of glass and silver. Inside the coach, the silence is broken by the sound of the wheels. On the soft snow, they were quiet, but now they are rolling over a layer of ice. The sound is a high-pitched, grinding scream. Scree-crunch, scree-crunch. It is a very cold sound. It makes your teeth feel funny. You can feel the vibration of the ice breaking under the heavy iron rims. Every few seconds, the coach slides an inch or two to the side as the wheels lose their grip on the frozen road. You feel your heart beat a little faster, but the horses keep their steady rhythm. You look at the man with the beard. He has woken up and is looking at the window too. He sees the rime on the glass and the frozen world outside. He reaches into his pocket and pulls out a small metal flask. He unscrews the top and takes a small sip. He offers it to you. You take a tiny drink. It is a very strong, bitter liquid that tastes like herbs and fire. It is called medicinal spirits. In those days, people believed a small drop of strong alcohol could keep the blood from freezing. Whether it works or not, it feels like a warm coal sliding down your throat. You pass it back with a nod of thanks. The wind begins to drop, leaving the moor in a state of perfect, frozen stillness. You can hear the ice on the trees clicking against itself. Click-clack, click-clack. It sounds like 1,000 tiny clocks all ticking at once. You lean your head against the wooden frame, being careful not to let your skin touch the freezing glass. You are a traveler in a world of ice. You are safe inside your wool and wood, but you are very aware of the power of the frost outside. The ice is beautiful, but it is a cold beauty that does not care about people. You close your eyes and imagine your home. You imagine the big iron key turning in the lock. You imagine the smell of the hallway, the scent of floor wax and old coats. That world feels like it belongs to another planet. But as the coach continues to grind over the ice, you know you are getting closer. Every crack of the ice is a sound you are leaving behind. Every mile of frozen moor, no mile you won't have to walk tomorrow. You wrap your 4-point blanket tighter and let the clicking of the ice lull you into a light sleep. The watchman is awake, the driver is alert, and the horses are moving through the crystal night. The coach comes to a slow, shuddering stop. This time, it does not feel like a snowdrift. There is no lurching or jumping from the horses. Instead, there is a heavy, quiet stillness. You hear the coachman climb down from his high perch. His boots make a different sound on the ground now, a sharp clack, followed by a hollow thump. He walks to the side of the coach and opens the door. A rush of air enters the cabin. It is so cold that it feels like a physical weight pressing against your chest. The coachman's face is almost entirely hidden by a thick woolen scarf, but you can see his eyes. They look tired and very serious. He tells you that the road ahead is completely blocked by a fallen tree. The ice has made the branches too heavy, and the giant oak has snapped, laying its body across the path like a sleeping giant. The horses cannot pull the coach over it, and the snow is too deep to drive around it. We are stuck, and the horses are starting to shiver. A historical fact about the 19th century is that horses can actually freeze if they stand still for too long in a blizzard. Their sweat turns to ice, and their muscles lock up. The driver knows he must get the animals to a shelter soon, or he will lose them. You decide that you cannot stay in the coach. If the horses stay here, you stay here, and the cold will eventually find its way through your blankets. You step out of the carriage. The snow is knee-deep, but beneath it is a layer of solid ice. You have to move very carefully. You reach back into the coach and pull out your carpet bag. You also take a small tool that the driver gives you. It is a lucifer. This is a micro-history detail from the 1840s. A lucifer was an early type of match. It was a small stick of wood tipped with a chemical that would burst into flame when you rubbed it against a rough surface. They were famous for being very smelly and making a loud pop when they lit, but they were a lifesaver for travelers who needed to light a lamp or a small fire. You tuck a small tin of them into your pocket, feeling the cold metal against your leg. The coachman stays with the horses to keep them calm, but he points toward a small rise in the land. He thinks he saw a flicker of light through the trees before the wind picked up. You volunteer to walk toward it. You leave the safety of the wooden carriage and begin to walk. Every step is a struggle. You have to lift your leg high out of the snow, balance on the slippery ice below, and then push forward. Your breath comes in short, sharp gasps. The air is so freezing that it makes your throat feel tight. As you walk away from the coach, the world becomes incredibly dark. The lanterns on the carriage are now just two small yellow eyes behind you. You are alone in the white deep. The moor is wide and flat, and the wind has nothing to stop it from hitting you. It whistles past your ears, sounding like a high-pitched flute. You keep your head down, tucked into your collar, and focus on the ground just in front of your feet. You look for the dark patches where the wind has blown the snow away, showing the grey ice underneath. After what feels like an hour, but is likely only 10 minutes, you stop. You take a moment for reflection. You stand perfectly still in the middle of the empty moor. You turn around, but you can no longer see the coach. The lanterns have been swallowed by the dark and the blowing snow. You are standing in a place where no one can see you and no one can hear you. It is a very strange feeling. It is not exactly fear, but a deep sense of how big the world is and how small you are. You look up at the sky. The clouds have parted for a tiny second, and you see a single star. It looks like a cold, silver pinprick. You realize that people have been looking at that same star for thousands of years, feeling the same cold and the same hope. You feel a quiet strength grow in your chest. You are not lost. You are just on a path that no one else is on right now. You turn back toward the hill and continue to climb. Your boots are heavy with frozen slush, and your legs are starting to ache. Then you see it. It is not a bright light. It is a tiny, orange glow, no bigger than a firefly. It disappears for a second as the wind blows a curtain of snow in the way, and then it comes back. It is the light of a window. It is the most beautiful thing you have ever seen. It means there is a hearth, a roof, and people. You push yourself to move faster. You are no longer just walking. You are marching. You can feel the blood pumping in your ears. The orange light gets larger and steadier. You begin to see the dark shape of a building. It is a small stone cottage, tucked into the side of the hill to hide from the north wind. It looks solid and ancient, like it grew out of the ground itself. You reach a small wooden gate. It is covered in frost and is very hard to push open. The hinges make a loud, rusty scream. Screeork. You walk up the narrow path to the door. You can smell wood smoke now. It is a thick, sweet smell that reminds you of everything good in the world. You reach out your gloved hand and knock on the heavy wooden door. Thud, thud, thud. Your heart is beating fast. You wait. At first, there is no sound from inside. You wonder if the people are asleep or if the house is empty. Then, you hear the sound of a heavy iron bolt being slid back. Clack shush. The door opens just a few inches. A warm, yellow light spills out onto the snow at your feet. It looks like liquid gold. You see a small slice of a room with stone floor, a wooden chair, and the edge of a bright fire. The air that comes out of the house is sweet and warm. It smells of dried herbs and baking bread. You see an eye looking at you through the gap. You quickly explain that you are a traveller from the Stagecoach and that the horses need help. The door opens wide. A person stands there, holding a small candle. The flame is steady because the air inside is so still. You step over the threshold, and for a moment, you almost fall over. The sudden warmth makes your head spin. Your frozen clothes begin to soften immediately. You hear the drip of melting snow falling from your hat onto the stone floor. You are inside. You are safe. The long walk through the dark is over, and you have found a light in the middle of the storm. You turn back to the door and point toward where the coach is hidden in the dark, knowing that now, the rescue can truly begin. The night shift of the traveller has found a place of rest, and the orange glow of the fire feels like a promise kept. The inside of the cottage is a small, warm world that smells of peace. You stand by the door, and the heat from the large hearth feels like a physical wave washing over you. A hearth is the stone floor of a fireplace, And here it is huge, taking up almost one whole wall. You look down at your boots, and you see small puddles of water forming on the clean stone floor as the snow on your clothes begins to melt. The person who opened the door is an old man with a face full of kind wrinkles. He wears a heavy waistcoat made of brown wool and moves slowly, but with a steady strength. He does not ask many questions at first. He knows the look of a person who has come in from the great frost. He takes your heavy, wet coat and hangs it on a wooden peg near the fire. As the wool gets warm, it starts to release a thick, white steam that smells of wet sheep and winter. This is a moment of reflection for you. You stand there in your shirt sleeves, feeling the air move around your body. 4 hours. You were wrapped so tightly in layers that you felt like a mummy. Now, you feel light and strange. You realize how much energy you were using just to stay warm. You take a long, slow breath of the indoor air. It is thick with the scent of dried lavender and old books. The old man reaches for a small cupboard and pulls out a tiny glass bottle. This is a micro-history detail called a smelling bottle. In the 1800s, people used these bottles filled with strong salts to help someone who felt faint or dizzy from the cold. He holds it near you, and the sharp, clean smell clears your head instantly. He then points to a wooden stool near the fire. "Sit," he says in a voice that is low and steady. You sit down, and the warmth from the burning logs hits your face. It is so hot that it almost stings, but it is a wonderful kind of pain. A historical fact about these small cottages is that they were built to be very thick. The walls are made of heavy field stones, nearly 2 feet wide. This was the only way to keep the heat in during a 19th century winter. Between the stones, people would stuff dried moss or wool to stop the wind from whistling through. You reach out and touch the wall. The stone is cool, but it feels solid and safe. It is a shield between you and the white chaos outside. You can hear the wind hitting the roof, but inside, not a single candle flame even flickers. The old man begins to prepare for the rescue. He moves to a corner of the room and picks up a long wooden pole with a hook on the end. This is a hay hook. He tells you that he has a small barn behind the cottage with 2 strong workhorses. He plans to use them to pull the fallen tree off the road so the coach can pass. He puts on a giant cloak made of heavy oilskin. Oilskin is a type of cloth that has been soaked in linseed oil to make it completely waterproof and windproof. It is very stiff and makes a loud crackle sound as he moves, like he is wearing a suit made of dried leaves. You watch him move toward the back door. You feel a deep sense of thanks. You came here looking for a light, and you found a person ready to help. You realize that out here in the country, people look after one another. There are no police or firemen to call. There is only your neighbor and the strength of your own arms. You feel a connection to this old man, even though you just met him. You are both part of the night shift now, working together to beat the storm. He hands you a small lantern. It is a stable lantern, made of tin with hundreds of tiny holes punched into the metal in the shape of circles and stars. Inside is a small candle. The holes let the light out but protect the flame from the wind. This is a very common tool from the era because it is very hard to break. You hold it by the wire handle. It feels light and warm. The light it casts on the walls looks like a sky full of tiny stars. You take a moment to look at the room in silence. There is a small wooden table with a loaf of bread and a wedge of yellow cheese. There is a tall clock in the corner with a heavy lead weight that hangs from a chain. Tick dot 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 tock dot dot. Tick dot 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 tock. The sound is slow and patient. It reminds you that time is still moving, even when the world feels like it has stopped. You see a small shelf with a few books and a pair of spectacles. It is a simple life, but right now, it feels like a palace. The old man opens the back door, and the sound of the wind rushes him for a second before he steps out and closes it. You are alone in the main room. You lean closer to the fire. You can see the sap bubbling out of the ends of the logs. It makes a tiny hiss sound. You watch the red embers at the bottom of the fire. They look like a city made of gold and rubies. You feel your eyes getting heavy. The warmth is like a soft blanket pulling you towards sleep. But you know you cannot sleep yet. The coach is still out there. The young woman and the man with the beard are still waiting in the cold. You stand up and stretch your legs. They feel a bit like lead, but the heat has taken the ache away. You look at the tiny glowing window. The orange light you saw from the moor is still there, shining out into the dark. It is a promise to the world that there is warmth and life inside. You think about the journey so far. The city feels like a dream from 100 years ago. The stagecoach, the snowdrifts, and the frozen moor, all pieces of a long, white bridge that you are crossing. You are halfway across now. You have found the middle point. You take the stable lantern and walk toward the window. You hold the light up to the glass. You want to make sure that if anyone else is lost on the moor, they can see your light too. You are now a guardian of the hearth, waiting for the horses to return and the road to be clear. The heavy back door swings open again, and the old man returns, bringing a swirl of freezing air and the smell of wet horsehair with him. He's not alone. Behind him, two massive workhorses stand in the doorway, their heads reaching high into the shadows of the rafters. They are shearers, the giants of the English countryside. Their legs are as thick as small tree trunks, covered in long, silky white hair called feathers, that protects their feet from the biting snow. They breathe out enormous clouds of steam that fill the small room, making it look for a moment as if the cottage is floating in the clouds. The old man begins to gather his gear. He picks up a set of heavy leather harnesses from a wooden peg. These are not like the thin, pretty straps on the stagecoach. These are working gears, made of thick, dark hide reinforced with heavy iron rings. He throws them over the horses' backs, and the metal makes a loud, comforting clink-clank as it settles. He then picks up a long, heavy chain. This is a drag chain, a micro-history tool used by farmers for moving fallen logs or clearing heavy rocks from a field. It is made of black iron, and each link is as thick as your thumb. It is cold and greasy to the touch, and it smells of old oil and earth. A historical fact that might interest you is that in the 1840s, these workhorses were the true engines of the world. A single shire horse can pull over 5 tons of weight. The fallen oak tree on the road is a giant, but these animals were bred for exactly this kind of struggle. You watch the muscles ripple under their skin as they shift their weight. They are calm, patient animals. They do not fear the wind or the dark. They only wait for the word from their master. You take a moment for reflection. You stand between the warmth of the fire and the massive, living heat of the horses. You reach out and lay your hand on the neck of the nearest horse. Its fur is thick and coarse, and you can feel the powerful heartbeat through the muscle. The animal turns its large, dark eye toward you and let out a long, soft nicker. It is a sound of friendship. In this tiny cottage, surrounded by a blizzard, you feel a deep sense of connection to these creatures. Without them, the road would stay closed forever. You realize that human life in the winter is a partnership with the animals. We give them hay and a dry stable, and they give us the strength to survive the storm. The old man hands you a thick woolen cloak. It is heavy and smells of the cedar chest it was kept in. You wrap it over your shoulders, feeling the weight of it pressed down on you. It is much warmer than your own coat, which is still steaming on its peg. You pick up the punched tin lantern again. The little stars of light dance across the horse's flanks. The old man leads the team back out into the night. and you follow close behind. The walk back to the road is easier this time because you are walking in the deep, wide tracks made by the horses. They move through the snow like ships through water, their heavy chests pushing the drifts aside. The wind is still howling, but it feels less scary now that you have the giant horses beside you. You reach the spot where the stagecoach is waiting. The lanterns are very dim now, almost out. You see the coachman standing by the fallen tree, his arms wrapped around himself to stay warm. He looks like a shadow made of frost. When he sees the horses, he lets out a cheer that is lost in the wind. The rescue is here. The old man moves with surprising speed for his age. He wraps the heavy iron drag chain around the trunk of the fallen oak. The chain clinks against the frozen bark, a sharp, metallic sound that cuts through the moan of the wind. He hooks the other end to the horse's harness. "Steady now," he calls out. His voice is not loud, but the horses hear him perfectly. You watch as the horses lean forward. They dig their massive hooves into the ice and snow, their muscles tensing until they look as hard as stone. For a second, nothing happens. The chain pulls tight, humming like a guitar string. Then, with a loud, wooden groan, the tree begins to move. The ice on the branches shatters, falling to the ground like 1,000 broken mirrors. Slowly, the horses pull the giant oak across the road, dragging it toward the ditch. You see sparks fly where the iron chain rubs against the frozen stones of the road. The path is clear. The night shift has done its work. The coachman runs to his team, patting their necks and checking their legs. He looks at the old man and gives a deep nod of thanks. No words are needed. In a blizzard, the act of helping is the only language that matters. You feel a surge of joy. The road is open. The bridge to home is no longer broken. You help the old man unhook the chains. Your hands are cold, but your heart is racing with excitement. You walk back to the coach door and open it. The young woman and the man with the beard are huddled together under their 4-point blankets. They look up, their faces pale in the dim light. "We are moving," you say. The relief on their faces is enough to make you forget the cold. You climb back into your seat, but before the door shuts, you look back at the old man and his 2 giant horses. They are already heading back toward the little orange light of the cottage, disappearing into the white swirl. They saved the journey, and now they are heading back to their own rest. You settle back into the straw, feeling the first jerk of the wheels as the stagecoach begins to roll once more. The way home is open, and the stars are starting to peek through the clouds. The coach is moving again, and the sound of the wheels on the cleared road is a beautiful music. But as you sit back in your seat, you realize that your clothes are no longer just cold. They are soaking wet. The walk to the cottage and the work with the horses have left your trousers and the hem of your coat heavy with melted snow. In the 19th century, damp clothes were a great enemy. If you stayed wet in the freezing air, the cold would pull the heat from your body twice as fast. You can feel the dampness creeping toward your skin, making you shiver. You look at the man with the beard. He sees you shivering and reaches into a small wooden box under the seat. He pulls out a bundle of dry rags and a small tin of oil. This is a micro-history trick that many travelers knew. He tells you to rub the oil onto the leather of your boots. The oil helps to push the water away so it does not soak through to your socks. You take a piece of the cloth and begin to rub the thick, smelly grease onto your boots. As you work, you feel the movement of your arms, bringing a little bit of warmth back to your chest. The smell of the oil is sharp and a bit like old fish, but you do not mind. It is the smell of survival. A historical fact about traveling in this era is that people often carried spare items not in their big trunks, but in their pockets. You reach into your own pocket and find a dry pair of woolen stockings. You carefully pull off your wet boots which is hard to do in the small space, and peel away your damp socks. Your feet are pale and very cold. You rub them with your hands until they turn a healthy pink, and then you slide on the fresh, dry wool. The feeling is incredible. It is like putting your feet into warm clouds. You tuck the wet socks into the straw on the floor, where they will not touch your skin. You take a moment for reflection. You sit in the dim light, watching the steam rise from your heavy wool coat. The heat from your body is turning the water in the fabric into a soft mist. You look like a ghost sitting in the corner of the carriage. You think about how strange it is that heat and cold can live in the same place. Outside, the world is a frozen desert, but inside this wool, your body is still fighting to stay warm. You feel a deep sense of pride in your own skin and bones. You are a strong thing, just like the horses and the old man. You are not just a passenger. You are a living fire moving through the night. The young woman across from you has a small metal bottle filled with hot water. This was a common tool called a carriage warmer. It is a flat, oval bottle made of thick copper with a screw-top lid. She had it filled at the last in, and it is still a little bit warm. She sees you looking and offers to let you rest your hands on it for a minute. You take the metal bottle. It feels smooth and solid. The heat is faint now, but it is enough to stop your fingers from feeling like sticks of ice. You pass it back with a whisper of thank you. In the quiet of the coach, every small act of kindness feels like a giant light. The air inside the coach is very thick now. It smells of wet wool, lamp oil, and the dry scent of the straw. It is not a fresh smell, but it is a cozy one. It is the smell of people huddling together against the world. You look out the window. The moon has finally broken through the clouds. It is a hunter's moon, big and bright and silver. It lights up the snow until the whole world looks like it is made of glowing salt. You can see the road clearly now. It stretches out ahead like a long, white ribbon. You notice a small detail on the door of the coach. There is a small pocket made of leather, and inside is a folded piece of paper. You pull it out and see that it is an old waybill. This is a specific micro-history document. It is a list of all the stops the coach has made and the time it arrived at each one. You see the names of towns you passed hours ago. The ink is faded and the paper is yellow, but it reminds you that there is a plan. You are on a schedule. Even if the snow has tried to break it, you feel a sense of order. The world is not just a wild, white mess. It is a place with names and times and destinations. You lean your head against the side of the carriage. The wood is still cold, but you have placed a bit of your blanket between your hair and the wool. You listen to the rhythmic thump-thump of the horses. They are moving at a steady trot now. The road is flat, and the snow is not as deep here. You feel the coach swaying gently from side to side. It is a very sleepy movement. You feel the dampness of your coat slowly disappearing as the air inside the coach dries out. You are becoming a dry, warm person again. You think about the fireplace at home. You imagine hanging this wet coat on a hook by the kitchen door. You imagine the sound of the water dripping into a brass tray below. That moment is no longer a dream. It is a real thing that will happen soon. You have survived the deep drifts, the fallen tree, and the biting frost of the moor. You have changed your socks and oiled your boots. You are ready for the final miles. You close your eyes and let the smell of the damp wool and the sound of the road carry you deeper into the night. You are a traveler of the night shift, and you are almost there. The stagecoach moves with a new, quiet rhythm. The roar of the blizzard has faded, replaced by a low, steady whistle as the wind moves through the bare branches of the trees. You look out the window and notice that the world is no longer a blur of white chaos. You can see the dark shapes of the land again. The storm is losing its strength. The night shift of the weather is coming to an end, and the sky is beginning to clear. In the 1800s, people watched the clouds with great care. They knew that when the wind shifted from the north to the west, the snow would often stop. A historical fact about these winter storms is that they were like giant, moving walls. Once the wall passed over you, the air became very still and very sharp. You can feel that stillness now. The coach no longer rocks from the wind. It feels solid and heavy on the road. The silence outside is so deep that you can hear the tiny tink-tink of the ice falling from the coach's roof and hitting the snow below. You reach into your pocket and find a small, flat piece of metal. This is a pocket flint. It is a micro-history tool used for making a spark to start a fire or light a candle. It is a simple piece of high-carbon steel. You run your thumb over the smooth, cold surface. Even though you are not using it to start a fire right now, the feeling of it reminds you of the power of a single spark. In a world of ice and dark, a little bit of fire is the most important thing a person can have. You think about the old man in the cottage and the fire that saved your spirit. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the simple things. You take a moment for reflection. You look at the sky through the glass. The clouds are tearing apart like old silk, and you can see more stars now. They are not warm stars. They look like tiny pieces of frozen light, but they are steady. They give you a sense of direction. You think about how the world feels so different after a storm. Everything feels new and clean, but also very fragile. You feel like you have been through a great battle and come out the other side. You are tired, your bones ache, and your skin feels tight from the cold, but you are also very calm. The worst part of the journey is behind you. Inside the coach, the air is finally starting to feel dry. The damp mist from your wet clothes has vanished. You look at the young woman across from you. Her head is back against the wood, and she is sleeping deeply. Her breathing is soft and regular. The man with the beard is looking out his own window, humming a very low tune that you can barely hear. The tension that filled the cabin when you were stuck in the snowdrift is gone. We are no longer fighting for our lives. We are just waiting to arrive. You notice the coachman doing something different now. He is blowing his horn. This is a long, thin horn made of brass, called a post horn. It has no valves or buttons. The driver makes the sound just with his lips. Ta dash to dash to dash to a. The sound is bright and clear, ringing out over the frozen fields. In the 19th century, this was a signal. He's telling the next in that the mail is coming and that they should have fresh horses and hot food ready. The sound of the horn makes your heart jump a little. It is the sound of victory. It says that the blizzard did not win. The ground under the wheels is much smoother now. The horses have picked up their pace. They are no longer leaping. They are trotting with a beautiful, rhythmic beat. Clop clop, clop clop. It is a very comforting sound, like the ticking of a giant clock. You see the shadow of the coach moving across the snow next to you. In the bright moonlight, the shadow is perfectly clear. You can see the spinning wheels and the heads of the horses. It looks like a ghost coach traveling alongside you. You feel a sense of peace in the dark. The night shift of the road is almost over. You think about the morning that will come soon. You imagine the sun hitting the snow and making the whole world sparkle. But for now, you enjoy the silver light of the moon. You feel like you are the only person in the world who is awake to see this beautiful, frozen moment. You take a deep breath, and for the first time in hours, your chest does not feel tight with the cold. The air is fresh and sweet. You lean back and close your eyes. You don't need to watch the road anymore. You can feel it in the movement of the carriage. You can hear it in the horses' hooves. You are moving toward the end of the story. The storm has faded, the path is clear, and the light of home is waiting just over the next hill. You let yourself drift into a light sleep, safe in the knowledge that the watch is almost ended. The coach has left the high moor behind, and you are now moving through a valley where the air is still and the snow lies in deep, soft pillows. The moon is high above, and its light is so bright that you could almost read a book by it. You look out the window and see the world in shades of silver and black. The fields are a pure, glowing white, and the shadows of the hedges are like long, dark ribbons stretched across the ground. The wind has stopped entirely. It is so quiet that you can hear the soft crunch of the horses' hooves as they step into the fresh powder. You notice that the road is now marked by tall stone posts every mile. These are called milestones. In the 1800s, these were very important for travelers. They told you exactly how far you had come from the city and how many miles were left until the next town. You see one passing by in the moonlight. It is a square block of grey stone with deep numbers carved into it. A historical fact about these stones is that they were often placed by the same turnpike trusts that managed the gates. They were the map of the 19th century road, letting every weary traveller know that their goal was getting closer. Inside the coach, you feel a new kind of energy. The fear of the storm has gone, and in its place is a quiet excitement. You reach into your bag and find a small, soft cloth. You use it to clean the inside of the window one last time. You want to see everything. You see a small fox running across a field. Its fur looks almost black against the snow, and its long tail leaves a thin line behind it. It stops for a second, looking at the big red coach with its glowing lanterns, and then it vanishes into a hedge. It is a small moment of life in the middle of the frozen night. A micro-history detail you might notice as you look at the road is the camber. This is the way the road is built, with a slight curve, like a very flat hill, so that the middle is higher than the sides. This was a clever design by engineers like John McAdam. It allowed the melting snow and rain to run off into the ditches instead of sitting in the middle of the path and turning into a swamp. Because of this curve, the coach sits at a slight angle as it moves along. You feel the weight of your body pressing gently against the side of the seat. It is a very familiar, steady feeling. You take a moment for reflection. You think about the path you have travelled. You remember the busy streets of the city, the dark woods, the screaming wind of the moor, and the heavy work of the snowdrifts. Each part of the journey was like a different room had to walk through. Now, you are in the final hallway. You feel a sense of accomplishment. You didn't give up when it was hard, and you didn't lose hope when the world went black. You are a survivor of the winter road. You feel older and wiser than you did when you stepped into the coach yesterday afternoon. The air inside the cabin is now fresh and cool. The smell of the wet wool has faded, and the scent of the clean snow is coming in through the small gaps. It is a very sweet smell. You look at your fellow passengers. The young woman is awake now, straightening her bonnet and smoothing her skirts. She looks refreshed. The man with the beard is cleaning his spectacles with a silk handkerchief. We are all preparing ourselves to meet the world again. We are no longer the huddling ghosts of the blizzard. We are people going home for Christmas. You hear the coachman whistle a happy tune. It is a simple folk song, the kind people sing in the pubs on a Saturday night. It sounds brave and cheerful in the cold air. You realize that he is happy too. He has brought his passengers and his mail through one of the worst nights of the year. He has kept his horses safe and his coach on the road. He is a master of the night shift, and he knows he has done a good job. You feel a deep respect for him. You think about how many thousands of miles he has travelled, watching the world sleep while he works. The valley begins to widen, and you see the first signs of people again. You see a small stone bridge over a frozen stream. You see a wooden fence that has been painted white. These are small things, but they mean that you are near a village. The road feels more solid here, and the horses move with a confident trot. Clop clop, clop clop. The sound echoes off the stone walls of the bridge. You look at the silver moonlight on the snow. It is so beautiful that it takes your breath away. You realize that you will remember this night for the rest of your life. You will tell your children about the time the snow was so deep it swallowed the wheels, and how the giant horses pulled the tree from the road. The hardship of the journey has turned into a story, and like all good stories, it is coming to a happy end. You lean back and enjoy the smooth roll of the carriage. The path is soft, the light is bright, and the morning is not far away. The coach moves into a wide, open plain, and the world looks like it has been dipped in liquid silver. The moon is so high and so round that the shadows it casts are as sharp as ink on white paper. You look out the window, and for a moment you forget about the cold and the long hours. The snow is not just white, it is glowing, because the air is so still and the frost is so deep. Every tiny flake on the surface of the snow acts like a little mirror. Millions of these tiny mirrors are catching the moonlight and throwing it back at the sky. A historical fact that people in the 1840s knew well was that the moon was their greatest friend on the night shift. Before there were bright lights in every window, a night with a full moon was called a traveller's moon. It was the only time the road ahead 4 miles. You look at the horizon and see the soft, blue-grey line of the hills where you were going. They look close enough to touch. The world feels huge, clean, and very old. You feel like you are travelling through a landscape from a dream, where everything is made of light and ice. As the coach rolls along, you notice a specific micro-history detail on the horse's harness. It is a hame ball. These are round, polished brass balls that sit on top of the wooden collar of each horse. In the moonlight, they shine like 4 small moons of their own. They were not just for show. They helped the driver see the movement of the horse's shoulders in the dark. You watch the way the light dances on the brass as the horses move. Flicker, flash, flicker, flash. It is a very hypnotic and peaceful sight. It matches the steady beat of the hooves in the soft snow. You take a moment for reflection. You sit in the quiet coach and look at your hands in the silver light. They look pale and strange. You think about how much has happened since the sun went down. You have seen the world at its most wild and its most beautiful. You realize that most people only see the world during the day, when it is full of noise and business. But you have seen the secret side of the world. You have seen the night shift of the earth, where the trees talk to the wind and the moon turns the fields into silver. You feel a deep sense of peace. You are not just a traveller. You are a witness to the beauty of the winter night. The air inside the coach is very cold now, but it is a dry, clean cold. It does not feel like the heavy, wet cold of the blizzard. You pull your 4-point blanket up to your chin, but you do not close your eyes. You don't want to miss a single second of this light. You see a row of tall poplar trees along the road. They look like giant silver spears reaching for the stars. Every branch is covered in a thick layer of frost that looks like white fur. When the coach passes them, the light from the lanterns catches the ice, making the trees sparkle like they are covered in diamonds. You notice the sound of the wheels has changed again. The ice on the road is very hard here, and the iron rims make a high, singing note. It is a very clear sound that carries for a long way in the still air. Ping ... shshshshsh ... ping. It sounds like a finger rubbing the rim of a crystal glass. It is a lonely sound, but also a very beautiful one. It tells you that the ground is solid and the way is clear. The horses seem to like the sound too. They have pricked their ears forward, listening to the music of the road. Inside the coach, the young woman is looking out her own window. You see the reflection of the moon in her eyes. She looks very calm. The man with the beard has taken off his hat and is resting his head against the wood. We are all silent, sharing this moment of silver light. No one wants to talk and break the magic of the night. We are like three ghosts moving through a silver kingdom. You feel a sense of connection to them that you didn't have before. You have all seen the same dark, and now you are all seeing the same light. The coach passes a small stone cottage by the side of the road. It is dark, and the windows look like black eyes. A thick blanket of snow sits on the thatch roof, looking like a heavyweight hat. You see a single trail of blue smoke rising from the chimney. It goes straight up into the air, because there is no wind to blow it away. Someone is sleeping inside, warm and safe. While you roll past in the moonlight, you feel a small spark of joy knowing that soon you will be the one sleeping by a warm hearth. You look up at the stars again. They look so bright and so close. You feel like if you reached out your hand, you could pluck one from the sky. You think about how people have looked at these same stars for hundreds of years, wondering about the world. You feel like you are part of a very long line of travelers who have moved through the night under the watch of the moon. You are almost at the end of your path. The silver fields are a sign that the journey is nearly over. You take a deep, slow breath of the freezing air and smile. The world is a beautiful place, even in the middle of the winter night. The coach is moving through a valley where the air is so still it feels like it has frozen in place. You are sitting quietly, wrapped in your heavy woolen blanket, when you hear a sound. At first, it is so faint that you think it is just the ringing in your ears from the long hours of wind. But then it comes again, carried on the crisp, freezing air. It is a low, sweet tone, followed by another, and then a third, dong, del, dong. It is the sound of church bells. In the 1800s, bells were the voice of the village. They told people when to wake up, when to pray, and when a celebration was starting. A historical fact about these bells is that they were often rung at midnight on Christmas Eve to ring in the holiday. This was called the peal of joy, because the air is so cold and dense tonight. The sound travels 4 miles across the snow. It does not sound like a loud, clanging noise. Instead, it sounds soft and silver, like the stars are talking to the earth. You look out the window and see the source of the sound. On a distant hill, a small stone church stands against the dark sky. Its tall steeple is covered in a cap of white snow, and yellow light shines through the tall, arched windows. You can imagine the people inside, standing in the pews, their breath turning to mist in the cold air as they sing. The sound of the bells makes the whole carriage feel lighter. The young woman across from you sits up straight and crosses her hands over her chest. The man with the beard gives a long, happy sigh. The bells are a sign that you have arrived back in the world of people. A micro-history detail you notice as you look toward the church is the link gate. This is a small, roofed wooden gate at the entrance to the churchyard. In the old days, it was a place where people would wait for the priest to meet them. Tonight, the roof of the gate is heavy with a foot of snow, making it look like a tiny, frozen house. It marks the boundary between the wild moor and the sacred ground of the village. As the coach passes by the edge of the graveyard, you see the stone markers sticking out of the snow like small, grey teeth. Everything is quiet, peaceful, and holy. You take a moment for reflection. You listen to the rhythm of the bells as they fade behind the coach. Dong dot 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 dong dot 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 dong. The sound is like a heartbeat for the countryside. You think about how many generations of people have heard those same bells on a night like this. You feel a sense of time stretching out behind you and ahead of you. The blizzard was a moment of chaos, but the bells represent something that never changes. They are a promise that no matter how hard the winter is, the morning and the spring will always come back. You feel a deep sense of calm in your soul. The coachman responds to the bells by blowing his post horn one last time. He plays a quick, cheerful tune that matches the ringing of the iron bells. The horses seem to know they are close to the end of their shift. They lift their hooves higher and shake their manes, making the harness bells jingle with a new energy. The night shift of the road is meeting the night shift of the church, and together they are making a beautiful music in the dark. Inside the coach, the air feels different. It no longer feels like a prison or a fortress. It feels like a hallway leading to a door. You reach for your carpet bag and pull it closer to your knees. You check the tin of sweet biscuits for your mother. You can feel the metal is cold, but the contents are safe. You think about the wooden toy for your nephew. You imagine his face when he sees it tomorrow morning. The bells have turned your thoughts from survival to giving. The road is now lined with small houses. You see wreaths made of holly and ivy hanging on the wooden doors. Holly is a bush with sharp, shiny green leaves and bright red berries. In the 19th century, people brought these plants inside because they stayed green even in the dead of winter. It was a way to remember that life was still hiding under the snow. You see the red berries reflecting the light of the coach lanterns as you roll past. They look like tiny drops of fire against the dark wood. You see a small group of carol singers walking down the pavement. They are wrapped in thick scarves and carrying a large paper lantern on a pole. They stop and wave at the stagecoach as it passes. You see the steam from their singing rising into the air. They are part of the night shift 2 people who stay awake to spread a little bit of joy in the cold. You raise your hand and give them a small wave back through the glass. The sound of the church bells is now far away, a ghostly echo in the valley, but the feeling they gave you stays in your chest. They have broken the spell of the blizzard. The world is no longer a scary, white desert. It is a neighborhood. You see the light of a pub on the corner, its windows glowing with a deep orange light. You can hear the faint sound of laughter as the door opens and closes. You lean your head back and listen to the final clop-clop of the horses. The journey has been long. You have seen the dark forest, the frozen moor, and the deep white drifts. But now, the bells have called you home. You are a traveler who has finished the race. You feel a sense of deep, tired happiness. The watch is almost over, and the bells have told the world that you are safe. You close your eyes for a few more minutes, letting the memory of the bells ring in your ears. The coach slows to a final, gentle crawl. It turns into the narrow lane that leads to your village. The heavy iron wheels move slowly over the packed snow, making a sound like a giant breathing. You look out the window, and your heart gives a little jump. There, at the end of the lane, is the old garden gate. It is a simple gate made of dark iron, but to you, it is the most beautiful sight in the world. It stands as a silent guard at the edge of the place where you grew up. In the 1800s, these gates were often made by the local blacksmith. A historical fact you might like is that every blacksmith had his own mark or style. Your gate has a small scroll at the top that looks like a curling wave. It is covered in a thick layer of white frost tonight, making the black iron look like it is made of silver lace. You can see the way the moonlight catches the tiny ice crystals. They sparkle like 1,000 little stars. The coach comes to a full stop. For a moment, you just sit there. The silence inside the cabin is deep and heavy. The journey is over. You have traveled through the night shift of the world, and you have reached the shore. You reach out and turn the heavy handle of the coach door. It makes a sharp click, and the cold air rushes in one last time. But this time, the air does not feel scary. It feels fresh and clean, like a new beginning. You step down from the coach. Your boots sink into the soft snow with a satisfying crunch. You reach back in and pick up your carpet bag. It feels lighter now, as if the weight of the journey has been lifted from it. You turn to the coachman. He is still sitting high on his bench, his face red from the frost. You reach into your pocket and find a silver coin. In the 19th century, it was common to give the driver a tip or a Christmas box for a safe journey. You hand it to him, and he touches his hat with a tired smile. "Merry Christmas, sir," he says in his gravelly voice. You walk toward the garden gate. The snow is undisturbed here. No one has walked this path since the storm began. You reach out your hand and touch the cold metal of the latch. The latch is the small handle that you lift to open the gate. The metal is freezing, but you do not mind. You feel the familiar shape of it under your glove. You lift the handle, and the gate makes a low, groaning sound, creak. It is a sound you have heard 1,000 times. It is the sound of home. You take a moment for reflection. You stand there with your hand on the gate, looking at the house. It is a small cottage with a steep roof and tall chimneys. You can see the yellow light of a fire glowing behind the thick curtains. You think about the miles you have covered. You think about the whiteout on the moor and the fallen tree. It feels like those things happened years ago, in another life. You feel a deep sense of peace. You are no longer a traveler. You are a son returning to his mother's house. You are a person who belongs somewhere. A micro-history detail you notice as you walk through the gate is the boot scraper by the side of the path. This is a small piece of iron set into a stone block. It was used to scrape the mud and snow off your sawless before you entered the house. You stand on one foot and run your boot across the sharp metal edge. Scrape shush, scrape shush. The frozen slush falls away into the snow. It is a small, everyday act, but it feels like a ritual. You are leaving the road behind. You are cleaning away the journey so you can step into the warmth. The path to the front door is short, but you walk it slowly. You want to feel the cold one last time. You want to remember the smell of the winter air and the silence of the village. You look up at the tall chimney. A thick, grey plume of smoke is rising into the sky. It smells of burning peat and oak. It is the smell of safety. It is the smell of the hearth. You reach the front door. It is made of thick oak with a large brass knocker in the shape of a lion's head. You reach out and touch the nose of the lion. The metal is smooth and cold. You don't use the knocker. Instead, you reach into your pocket and find the heavy iron key. It is a large key, nearly 6 inches long. You slide it into the keyhole. It fits perfectly. You turn the key, and you hear the lock move with a solid, heavy clunk. You push the door open. The air that hits you is not just warm. It is full of life. It smells of roasting meat, dried oranges, and old wood. It is the smell of your childhood. You step over the threshold and close the door behind you. The sound of the latch clicking shut is the final note of the journey. You are inside. The night shift is over. You drop your bag on the floor and stand in the hallway, letting the warmth soak into your bones. You are home for Christmas, and the world outside is just a memory in the dark. You stand in the hallway for a long minute, just breathing. The transition from the freezing night to the heart of the house is almost too much for your senses. The air is thick and sweet, moving around you like a warm liquid. You reach up and pull off your heavy woolen hat. Your hair feels flat and cold, but your scalp begins to tingle as the heat touches it. You unwrap your long scarf, the one that was frozen stiff just moments ago, and hang it over the banister. The wood of the banister is polished and smooth, reflecting the light of a single candle sitting on a side table. A micro-history detail you see right away is the kissing bough hanging from the ceiling. In the 1840s, before every house had a Christmas tree, people made these beautiful circles of greenery. It is made of 2 wooden hoops joined together and covered in holly, ivy, and mistletoe. Small red apples and shiny ribbons hang from the bottom, and a few tallow candles are nestled in the leaves. It looks like a crown made of the forest, brought inside to celebrate the light. You stand under it for a second, feeling the quiet joy of the season. A historical fact about this moment is the Christmas hearth. In the 19th century, the fire was never allowed to go out during the 12 days of Christmas. People believed that a cold hearth brought bad luck. But more importantly, the fire was the heart of the family. You walk toward the kitchen, where the biggest fire is kept. The floorboards are made of wide oak planks, and they feel solid and warm under your boots. You can hear the steady tick-tock of the grandfather clock in the corner. It is a slow, deep sound that tells you the night is safe. You take a moment for reflection. You look at your reflection in a small mirror on the wall. Your face is red from the wind, and your eyes look tired, but there is a light in them that wasn't there when you left the city. You have seen the power of the storm and the kindness of strangers. You have seen the world at its most beautiful and its most dangerous. You realize that the journey was not just about moving from one town to another. It was about finding the strength inside yourself. You feel a deep sense of gratitude for the wooden coach, the brave horses, and the old man with the lantern. They were your guardians in the dark. You step into the kitchen. The room is glowing with a deep, orange light. Your mother is sitting in a rocking chair by the fire, her head nodding as she dozes. A large black kettle is sitting on the iron hob, making a soft, singing sound. On the table, there is a plate of mince pies and a jug of fresh milk. You do not wake her just yet. You simply sit down on a wooden bench and let the heat of the fire sink into your skin. You feel your muscles finally letting go. The tension of the road, the fear of the drifts, and the bite of the frost are all melting away. You are no longer a traveler of the night shift. You are a person at rest. The world outside can continue to freeze and the wind can continue to howl, but it cannot reach you here. You have reached the end of the long, white road. You are safe. You are warm. You are home. The journey is over now, and the world is quiet. You can feel the heavy weight of the blankets waiting for you upstairs, and the soft pillow that will hold your head. The sounds of the blizzard, the whistling wind, the grinding wheels, and the jingle of the harness are fading into the distance. They are becoming nothing more than a soft hum in the back of your mind. You are tucked away in a place where the cold cannot find you, and the shadows are only made by the dancing flames of the fire. Let your breathing slow down. Feel the warmth of the room wrapping around you like a soft, invisible cloak. Your eyes are heavy, and the light of the candle is getting dimmer. There is no more road to walk, no more snow to dig, and no more wine to fight. The horses are in their warm stables, the coach is at rest in the yard, and the driver is sleeping by his own hearth. Everyone is safe, everything is still, the world is at peace, and so are you. Sleep now, knowing that the morning will bring the sun and the joy of the holiday. You have done well. The sun is rising, the gates are opening, the watch is ended.